Somebody wants a planning commission chair? Ammon, you want one? George, you have one?
It's now 5:30, so I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is a joint meeting with the West Jordan City Council and the Planning Commission. We have Councilmember Whitelaw, Councilmember Green, Commissioner Hatch, Commissioner Shelton, Commissioner Quinney, Commissioner Allen, Councilmember Bloom, Councilmember Worthen, Commissioner Wint, and Commissioner, oh dear, Thomas.
Here. There we go.
I know. All I could think is his wife's name, which is really close to his, right?
It
Okay.
works.
So, thank you for being here. Our first order of business is a general plan discussion. There, I believe, are some staff members that are going to be presenting a little bit, and then it will be an open discussion amongst the however many of us show. Councilmember Jacob did alert me that traffic is horrendous, and he is on his way. So, Duncan, are you first or is Scott first?
If I may, Council Chair, and Commissioners, this is a combined meeting. You've had access through PrimeGov to the working draft of the general plan. It is a work in progress. It is not a final version. There is a printed copy on each table, kind of in the center, that you can reference. You can also, if you're on PrimeGov, you can reference it there. Our staff has put line numbers on both margins so that as you're having a discussion with this in the future, you can reference a page number and a line number. It's a 2-paragraph format. We also have a dynamic interactive GIS map with the current future land use map. And the staff has been working on this for several weeks in preparation for this meeting. The General Plan Committee, made up of residents, has been working since October 2020 on this, and they've met a number of times despite COVID. So we're hopeful that we can get through the introduction in about 30 minutes and then spend the bulk of the meeting just hearing your comments between the two bodies on the general plan that will come to the Planning Commission first and then to the City Council, hopefully by the end of the year. Thank you.
So, City Council, Planning Commission, thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to be here. This is a very important policy document that will drive a lot of different things over many years. And so you all being together today really is important, and I appreciate it. As Chair Whitelock has indicated, we're going to take just a few minutes to give you an update of where we are, what we've done so far, and we've asked a few staff to kind of lead 4 different elements of this update. Duncan Murray is going to take some time right off the bat and talk to you about review of the process per state law, why we do what we do. We are creatures of the state, and so Duncan will give you an update there. Cassidy and Alan are going to give you perhaps a little bit more information as to what we've done up to this point, all the efforts of the General Plan Committee over the last 18 months. And then Ray and Mark are going to give you an overview of the various elements, really high level, quick, and talk to you a little bit about the updates to the future land use map. And then next steps, where do we go from here? What can the commissioners expect? What can the council expect per what Alan just told you? So, Duncan?
All right, so I'll advance the slide here. Which button is it, Ray? This one? The one that's worn out that I can't see the arrow? Okay, so the general plan is a very important document. As you know, it's not 100% binding on every decision, but it is required that the Planning Commission and Council at least refer to the planning or to the general plan when it makes certain decisions. There's one main section in state law in LUDMA, in the Land Use Development Management Act, that talks about the general plan. And it's 1090-403. It's a really long section. It's about 5 pages. And the challenge is that some of the information is in 2 parts, and you have to kind of go back and forth. And so what I decided to do is work with the planners and come up with this table that kind of lets you look at a glance what the different elements in the general plan are. And maybe I should back up. When a city redoes its general plan, then there is an initial noticing requirement that you have to give the general public notice that you're going to start a new general plan process. The community development staff did that. And as we move forward, and we've already had one of the 2 open houses, which even though they're not required by law, I think they're great. And I think the first one was very successful. The other one's tomorrow night. But then as we move into the statutorily required process, it goes to the Planning Commission. And they'll hear at a couple of meetings, one of which will have to be a public hearing, and that'll be noticed up properly, and then it'll come to you, and under city code, it'll be noticed up as a public hearing as well. But our current general plan, the 2012 general plan, is broken up into certain chapters or elements. We refer to them as chapters, but they are called elements in state law. And the numbering system, I think, remains pretty close to what the numbering system in the current general plan is. And you can see on the left 2 most columns are just basically what's going to end up being the table of contents, the chapter number and the chapter name. But in the 3rd column, we put the information as to state law if it's a required element or if it's optional. And you'll notice from that chart that there are 4 required elements under state law. One of them is a land use element, another one is a transportation element, and then a sustainability, including, well, it's called a water use and preservation element in the state code, and then a moderate income housing element. And as you know from your last meeting, you did update the strategy section to the current 2012 general plan. And if I understand correctly, that'll be rolled right into this new 2022 general plan. The 2 that have been updated the most in the last couple legislative sessions are the water use and preservation and moderate income housing. The legislature has consistently for the last couple of years added some additional requirements on what has to be in there and what we need to do. That's the big focus, is preserving and using water wisely and then providing moderate income housing options. Then state law gives 4 specifically called out optional elements, and we have at least parts of each of those. One is an economic development element, which we have. Another one's an environmental element, and it talks in state code about a public services and facilities element. We have part of that. We have the parks and recreation. And then there's another one called rehabilitation, redevelopment, and conservation element, and we have a historic preservation portion of that one. So we are in compliance with the types of all the 4 mandatory elements, at least pieces of all 4 of the optional elements, and of course you can have whatever else you want in your plan. The advantage to keeping the plan updated is it helps just give guidance to everything else, right? So when we do code amendments, when we update our master plans, and so that last, in addition to having the relevant code sections there, where these the specifics are called out for these elements, that last column basically identifies the relevant plans and reports that relate to it. And the timing's good because, and that was some of the input that I know that the chair of the General Plan Committee gave, and some members of the public, I think, recognized the advantage of having a new general plan is that now you can update your other master plans and you've got something to update them from. And I know the council in your last year's budget that you appropriated money specifically for some of these master plans, so that after this general plan is approved, then Brian Clegg can go update his transportation master plan and have it be consistent with the new general plan, or Greg Davenport can update his culinary water master plan or his stormwater plan with the funding that you've provided. And then the idea is then we've got all of these plans that are consistent with each other. So I think it's really good timing. But that's the main thing I just wanted to cover. I wanted to cover the noticing requirements and then cover which of these elements are required by state law, which ones are optional under state law, and how the general plan being adopted helps allow for these other master plans to be updated and move forward afterwards. But do you have any questions for me on any of those types of topics?
So I'm looking at the elements of the proposed general plan and the related plans. And somewhere and I see we have a future land use map, the transportation plan, parks and open. I don't see the active transportation master plan referenced anywhere here at all. On this chart.
Yeah, so I mean, the chapter 5, the transportation chapter or element,
But
should probably refer to that master plan. But what I'm saying is these master plans are not part of your general plan, but once the general plan is adopted, they can be updated to
But
be
we
consistent
probably
with
ought
it.
to
Right.
make sure that we include as a related plan, the active transportation
gotcha.
master plan.
Yes, that got
or
left off the last
otherwise
column.
we-
Got it.
And then, so my question is, are there any other plans that we've not conveniently, we forgot about?
Inadvertently left off,
That
right.
we've left off that need to be referred to, tied to,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the active transportation plan, that's the one that has bicycle paths and
Yep.
pedestrian walkways, those kind of trails. Yeah, so
Scott's got a
we'll
comment.
definitely add that one on.
So it's under the umbrella of the transportation element. Are you asking to
Well-
parse that out?
No, what I'm saying is that in this column on this chart, it says related plans, reports, or maps.
Right, yeah.
And we have no reference to the active.
Right.
And so my question is, beyond the active transportation master plan, are there any other plans? For example, Veterans Park master plan, should that be related under parks, recreation, trails, and open space?
Sure.
So my question is, what other master plans have we missed that we've got to incorporate and not overlook and make reference to and know that they're there and linked to them? Otherwise, if we don't do that, we're just left by the wayside saying, well, those are insignificant, or why did we waste the money on them, or anything else. So, those are at least two that I've thought about, are the active transportation plan, Veterans Memorial Park Master Plan. Are there some others that I've missed?
Ron Wood. We have-
Ron
Woodwood
Woodwin?
Park, yeah.
So, I just don't want the Ron Wood master plan, or, some of these people to feel like they're the stepchild of the city and we forgot about them.
542, Council Member Jacob, welcome.
Hi, Zach.
Okay. That's all I had, thank you.
Thank you.
Right, council, thank you. Commissioners, thank you. The general plan is broken into 13 different sections. The city council, if you remember, just a meeting or so ago, you adopted moderate income housing that gets submitted to the state October 1st. That is one of the last chapters in the guide. I just want to go a little longer into, not longer, I want to go a little more detail.
I'd like you to go short.
And I'll go shorter, a little more detail into the effort that went through the creation of this document. So approximately August, September of 2020, or in the midst of the pandemic, we initiated a call for volunteers. We received 15 applications of residents in all 4 districts to be able to serve on the general plan committee made up of residents. They consisted of housewives, employees, private employees. There's a county employee who's a planner that was on it. Just a great group of individuals in the city. Again, all 4 districts of the city. They met initially, they were appointed by the council in October and November of 2020. They began meeting after the holidays in January of 2021. They met typically over Zoom, 2 meetings a month initially. If you also recall, about January and February of 2021, they put together a survey. They had collected over 90 questions. They whittled that down as a group into 15 questions that went out into a survey. That information was provided to the council and helped guide the creation of this document. So there was about 500 responses to that survey. Once they got to summer, they went down to going through the document, the chapters that you see on the screen, making amendments and changes to the document, taking into account the survey questions. That then, once that was completed, it went back to staff who made additional adjustments to the text, and then went to Cassidy, who is our policy analyst, who has been drafting this final copy and adding in the graphics that you see, and threading or stitching together the verbiage between chapters so it's a readable document, and I think is in a very good position as this working draft that is before you. And that's a little bit of the history of creating the general plan. The last one that was adopted by the city council was in 2012. This one will be the 2022 general plan. Once it goes to the planning commission, and the planning commission makes a recommendation with any changes that you feel is necessary, that recommendation would then go to the city council, who can further amend it, make adjustments, and then they will adopt it, and then that will be the driving document for growth within the city of West Jordan. So that's a little bit of the history. The committee we've had a couple resignations just due to personal issues, but the committee is still impaneled at 13 members. And so you'll get to meet many of them when it comes to the Planning Commission and City Council as they report on their work. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes, they've done a great job. I've listened in and attended a few of their meetings, and they have a fantastic chair who's done a great job for us. So I think I would like us to do first, everyone has a map. And this is a workshop, so in our workshops, you can kind of just chime in when you want. But if you'll look at the map and see if there are any areas that are on here that you're like, is that what we really want? I can tell you there is an area by my home that I'm going to be asking that we consider changing, and that is on 40th West and 9,000 South, where Ball Camp, also known as Nampa, is located. The neighborhood that I live in now has Bangerter, 90th, and the railroad tracks. So to get in and out of our neighborhood is a bit tricky, and with the homes that we've entitled West, it will just get trickier.
Chair?
So that's an area, hang on just one second, that I personally want us to look at and review. Is that the best place for Napa is basically a warehouse, or would it be better to have that entire place be housing? So, yes, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you. Mr. McCandless has some updates on some changes. I don't know if you want to do that now before you get into the map, changes in the documentation in the chapters, and
No.
then go to the map.
I want us to look at the map first, and then we'll go into the document.
Okay.
Is that all right?
Yep, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that has anything on this map that you're like, is that the best. That would be helpful, huh? Yeah, I know. I've been trying to put the roads on here and I keep correcting
I'm a little
myself.
confused by what you were saying about ball camper. You're not trying to suggest we kick them out or something?
No, but rumor on the street is that they would like to condense into one location. They've got like 3 in the valley that like to go to one. So if they vacate, then I'm proposing maybe a future land use for that land is no longer industrial, that it become residential. Yes. And when you have industrial with semis behind homes, and in fairness, they were there, I think, before anyone in my subdivision was, because I was one of the fairly new homes. But the semis run into people's fences, they make a lot of noise, and people don't really like those semis coming in the back of their houses.
For the commissioners and council, we do have an interactive map on the screen at both ends of this room.
He hummed first.
Yeah, but you were close, so go ahead.
Okay, I was gonna say that I'm a little bit disappointed to see that and this is kind of hot button right now because there's a pending application on this, but that the Bowman's Arrow property is carried over without any changes. It used to be, this is a holdover from the old future land use map that used to carry over before Mountain View was planned here. And it had this kind of a rainbow look to it that used to go all the way across into what is now Copper Rim. And you see the Copper Rim has been updated with their application and their development that's come in. But it used to be this like, this like rainbow is the best way to say it. It had this arch of like, commercial, then high density, then medium density, then low density, kind of staggered as you go up what is now Mountain View corridor. But at that time, it was just further away from the arterial streets of 78th and 56. It had this rainbow. It's been there forever. And now we've got this same, obviously it doesn't work for Copper Rim as the development has happened. I don't think that having the leftovers for it is going to ever develop that way on the Bowman's Arrow piece, regardless of the current application that's pending. That archway look of that, it doesn't really look like the archway anymore because half of it's gone, but you get what I'm saying.
Just, Zach, can you just, it's this area right
Yeah,
here, right?
yep,
In
yep.
case
Yeah,
anybody's not sure.
7,800, so, yeah, I don't know if the map,
See-
so there we go, zoomed in on it.
I'm,
Right there.
I'm with Zach here. What?
Before we
whether
get
it's-
too far, can I just make a clarification? The map that was on the screen previously was the current future land use map. What's up there now is the proposed future land use map.
Regardless, it's the same.
And what is this one? The proposed? This existing?
Oh, well, then why are we looking at this?
Why do we have the existing one?
Now, why do we have an existing one? If we want to talk about changes, we ought to talk about the proposed.
So is the one on the screen new or existing?
This,
So we don't have one that staff is proposing.
So we don't have a proposed future land use map?
Okay.
Oh,
Well,
well, in that
then-
case, never mind.
then
I can
this
see why
will
it's
not
the
be
same,
useful.
because it's
Yeah.
the same.
But if the screen is the proposed future land, so
Nope, that's the old one too.
is that the old one too?
Oh, I
okay.
see. The changes are in text, not in colors and
So-
helpful designations. Gotcha.
My comment goes along the lines with where Zach's going. On this map right now, where we see Bowman's Arrow and some other property, we see a whole big chunk, we'll see 2 big chunks of green. We see the green at 78th, and we see the green up north of Maple Hills Park. We need to fix those and decide what we want the gravel pit to be and what we want that. Here's my concern. And we've seen this with some of the citizens' reactions to Bowman Zero, and a couple others. You're taking away our open space. There's an expectation that if it's green on the future land use map, that there's an expectation that that's going to be a park. I think a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, when Luke Skywalker was wielding his Jedi sword, that green Maple Hills Park was actually going to be a regional park. Well, it's not going to be a regional park now, so I think we need to figure out what's going to go in the gravel pit. Is it still going to be mountain bike trails? Is it going to be, so what my concern is not just this area of the map, but are there other areas of the map that have been that have been designated as open space that we're setting up an expectation of failure because the residents are saying, you're going to take away the park that was in my neighborhood. You're going to take away the open space. You're going to take away the cycling trail. Whatever it shows, we're going to get that, and we need to clean those up as part of the map. Does that make sense? No, weed green, so that
Well,
it's.
I think on the gravel pit, we need to collaborate with Salt Lake County and ensure that maybe they will put another regional park. I highly doubt it, but
They said they wouldn't when Lodestone Park went in. In fact, we talked about this one, gosh, 4 or 5 years ago, and said that that should be changed. And I think it was in a joint workshop, and we said the city should just change that park on the map, and it just never got done. The north one, yeah, the one that extends from the Maple Hills Park that is almost done.
so since we can't really review this map, Mr. Langsford, I don't know who you've got with you, but maybe I don't know about the other people, but I can't read what your proposals are. Maybe you could just very quickly go over your staff proposals. And if we hate them, we'll let you know.
Can you see this one up here?
Well, if I turn around, probably.
Okay. So let's start over on the east side, and then we'll work through it. Okay, along the east side, that's, so I'm just gonna work from the top down. This one's shown as open space, it's owned by the church. So the question is, do we leave it as it is, as open space, or?
May I interject?
Oh,
No,
sure.
No, that's just right next to our home, and it's just a weed patch, and they just mow down the thistles. It's very unsightly.
Okay. The next would be,
The question is, do we need to leave it as,
is,
They have vacated their easement with our property. There was an easement, but they vacated that easement. So I know they own it, but I think they can't use it.
Could you press your mic button, please?
Oh, sorry. The church has vacated their easement on that, so they still own the property, but they can't access it. The only way they can get into it is from our cul-de-sac on, to the left of Triumph Lane. To see that little cul-de-sac there? There's an entrance there, which they would have to access through us, and then also off of Winchester, which is, again, is not an access point, so
So,
it's landlocked, basically.
Trish, do you think your HOA would want to purchase that from them?
Our HOA is so poor.
No? Okay.
We thought about that, at one point, but
so, here's my question. It borders, you know, what sounds like it's unsightly, what do we do with it? Is that something that the city can negotiate an easement, if the church can, you know, can we negotiate and say, let us at least landscape it so that it's nice and it's tied to the river, the parkway?
it has that ribbon fence across it that, you know, separates it, and then it's right next to the Rocky Mountain Power Corridor. So it's really just an awkward piece of land that is really, would be really hard to put to any use whatsoever. Landscaping would cost a fortune, so
so it's sort of sounding like your preference is to leave it as it is, and then deal with it if they decide to build on it.
Yeah, at some point, I'd like to see it make it look better, but I don't think there's a budget for that either, so.
Okay. All right. So the next thing, the next one is just neighborhood commercial to high-density residential. There's some existing homes. It's, like I say, it's shown as commercial. It doesn't make any sense to
Right,
do
but
it
what's
there.
the major transportation corridor or transport, what's there that you want it to be high density?
It's, I think
What's the
they're-
justification is what
they're
I need to
exist-
know.
They're just existing homes,
Oh, okay.
and they're all high density, so do you
What
want to
homes
just
are-
leave it as, just keep in mind that this is for the future or guiding future decisions.
Right, but there's
So-
already homes on that property?
There are already homes on
Well,
it.
then it should reflect what's on it. Yeah. Yeah,
So it can go both, it can go either way if you want to show it. The next one is just to follow the existing commercial property boundary. Any problems with that one?
That's the piece of property just east of
O'Reilly's.
O'Reilly.
Alan, can you
Yeah.
highlight things as we go, so when somebody says the next one, we know which one the next one is?
Okay.
No, just make it commercial and it'll just sit there.
And then the next one down below it is just, so go ahead and change that one, is that correct? Okay. The next one would be just another, just touch up or clean up item on the map.
because it's already that? Yeah, okay.
It's not high density down there in Primavera, is it? Why would we make that piece of property on Primavera when all of those houses are, you got the big one, you got the bigger ones that are right along the river, and you got those others that, yeah, they're
Oh,
they're smaller homes there, but are those smaller homes considered high density?
they're
that's not
mobile
mobile
homes.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
they
that
are.
is. That's where, oh, yeah.
And that
okay.
little triangle is basically a residential property boundary, so it's making it, it just followed the property boundary.
Okay, all right.
Next one. So public facilities to parks and open land, that's owned by UPNL. That's just another cleanup item. Do you see any issues with that one?
No.
Okay. Parks and open land to public facilities on the next one. Oh, I'm sorry, the one that's on the south side of the South Valley Water Reclamation Facility. So
That's actually the road.
we can just extend that down, just so there's not a separate color that's there. Okay, the next one is part of, that's shown as green now, it's part of the water reclamation facility. Do you see any problems with that going to public facilities? Okay,
We're just extending the blue to the south of,
right. That's, the next one down is staff it's the community commercial to public facilities. It's part of the track station. Just to,
Tracks
it's
tracks.
by
just the
Gardner
parking
Village.
lot,
Now, you're on the north side of 78th there.
yeah.
No, that's
So there's
78.
Pioneer Hall and the cemetery.
78th is the red line that dips. The orange is Gardner
I
Village.
thought you were talking about that little blue one.
Oh, the blue, yeah, that's the wagon wheel.
The blue one is the little, and it's just, we need to make sure that that's because there's actually part of that wagon wheel that's like very high density or something, and it's about
Or
a tenth of an
the
acre.
millstone, yeah.
It's goofy as heck.
Does that mean I can't open a
Okay, the
store at
next-
the track station? I can't open a taco cart at the track station if never mind.
It's a temporary use.
Oh, yeah, there you go. As long as it's public facilities.
Okay, so the next one is just that's the track station, so we're just looking at changing that to public facilities. Any problems with that one?
What's the slice of green going through the door?
Jordan,
That could probably
That's the
be changed
canal.
too.
I'll bet you that's the, I'll bet you that's
yeah,
the
I think
canal.
you're right.
That's the,
Well,
that's
if
the.
the canal flows under the track station,
But the
make-
canal,
make it
but the canal comes out right there and split, if you remember, those of us that put campaign signs out, that, on that road that got taken down this year, but that's where we used to put campaigns, the canal, the canal opens up on that side of, on the south side of the road, and it goes over to the under 78th, and then and that's where the canal goes into Gardner Village and goes around to the west, around the ridge.
yeah, you had
It's
large
scary
types.
that I actually know that.
You had large types in your campaign signs, I guess. I never had to go out that far.
I guess we're gonna go up. So the one on the right, professional office to very high density residential, it's the existing Stonebridge Apartments. So looking at this long term, you see any issues with changing that to reflect the use?
well, we're not going to move those apartments, so we may as well make the map make sense.
Let's do it. Yeah, okay. Very high density residential to professional office, those are existing offices. That makes sense, okay, next.
Yeah.
Let's go. On the left, that's Bland Nursery. Right now, it's just shown as medium density residential. What do you think on that corner? It's been Bland forever, so,
Well, and Biograss took it over.
right?
There was some talk that maybe there was gonna be something, but you know what? I say the Bland property, we leave it commercial.
Change it to commercial?
Yeah, change
Yeah.
it to commercial.
Yes, change the Bland property to commercial. It's been traditional commercial use. Why would we give up a commercial, if there's a piece of property that we can say, you know, that's the expectation is that remains commercial, let's keep it.
Yeah, it's right on Redwood. Plus across the street. It's a good commercial site.
Community commercial?
Community commercial's on, is what's on the south, right? Yeah.
Okay. On the east side, I think this is just a map cleanup, changing it from medium density residential to high density residential. It's that top one.
Oh yeah, that's part of the Aspen, Gadsden Village stuff, isn't it?
Dove Meadows, yeah. And then, on that, the south one, let's see, change it from, professional office to high density residential because it's part of the Willow View subdivision.
Those are already houses? Yeah.
This one right here. So this is, it's residential, it's part of that Countrywood Estates condominiums. So we're talking about changing that to very high density residential. Do you have any issues with that?
You're changing just that little yellow square? Is there something already there?
It's the condo.
And it's a condo or part of the condos? Well,
Oh, it's
yeah.
part of that condo
Okay,
complex, that's
then.
right.
Are most of these just cleaning up current non-conforming?
A lot of them are on the east side. When you get to the west side, it's a little different.
Right. Maybe just, if it's a current non-conforming use, it ought to be maybe, yeah, I was gonna say maybe
If there's
just,
existing there, I don't think any of us are gonna tell you to move high density if we've already got high density housing there.
right, except I bet there will still be people that come and oppose it because you're making high density.
Okay, this is another map cleanup on the right, one on the right. It's parks and open land to medium density residential. It's just to clean up that canal alignment. And it's the same thing with the other one on the other side of the canal. So-
That green one there already has a house on it.
Okay, so we don't need to review them if they already have residential on them, then just change it to the residential use that's current. Are we all good with that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, So we don't need to review those. If there's some that are like the Bland Nursery, then yes, we want to.
So this is the, the existing track station. So we're looking at changing that from the medium density residential to the public facilities. Makes sense?
Yep.
Okay.
That goes in line. If it's a track station already, if it's already existing there, we just need to update the map.
Okay.
Oh, well, okay. Maybe.
All right. Medium density residential to light industrial. Yeah,
Somebody's
there's really
talking
no,
that I
there's really
can't
no
hear.
connection to that neighborhood
What
at
you want
all.
to do is make it purple.
Make it purple. Everybody okay with that one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, this one is, it's Fairchild, and there's been some discussion about what to do with the frontage, if that's kind of wasted space out there. Do you want some, maybe neighborhood commercial along that frontage?
I'm pretty sure they do, seeing as how they put up their sign advertising it as that.
It got taken down, but it was there
Just
for a long time. Pads for sale.
I'm not, is anyone opposed to that?
No, please, go, do, yes.
I don't know, I don't think that really makes sense to put retail right there. That's kind of out of the way from everything.
If you could build a bridge across the canal and connect it to the college, it would be like hot. It would be a hot retail spot.
How about
Maybe
changing that
access
to,
is why, I think.
rather than neighborhood commercial, maybe community commercial? It just allows a little more intensive uses, but given what's to the south of it,
I was told the line wanted to put like restaurants out there, so whatever gets restaurants there, I think would be a good place for them.
We've got a big enough parking lot for a restaurant.
let's,
Is there any concern that that would cannibalize the open pads across the street by the hospital? We have a Starbucks and that's the only thing that's gone in there in 7 years or whatever. Would adding more commercial there cannibalize
We
that
blame
stuff
that
across
on
the street?
We blame that on the developer.
Oh, well, see, on 90th, they have frontage, but, you know, Matt, if back there in the hospital, there's no frontage, and so that's
I'm not saying I'm
difficult.
opposed to it, I'm just asking a question.
I don't think it would. I think there is enough residential in that area now, plus the community college.
Yeah,
Plus
I've
the
long been a
hospital, I
supporter
think.
of commercial on those main arteries, so.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
it's good.
okay.
Well, and the
so-
other thing is whatever, if we set it up as commercial, it's going to incur, it might say, we're looking for more than just the parking lot in that, on that piece of property, right? And maybe that'll encourage somebody to be creative, so, yes.
I can speak, I just recalling there was a resident who was really upset when we changed the
Yes, his name's Jonathan Rogers.
residential for the mortuary.
He's talking about that.
Oh,
When we changed it for the,
Janet.
to,
Yes, she did not like it, but that's because the mortuary is in her backyard.
it's creepy.
Yes.
Yes.
That was her exact words.
It's a great Halloween attraction.
Okay, community commercial then?
Where it's gonna be a
Okay.
reflection
Yeah.
part for half the property. I don't know, zombie eclipse may be coming, Melissa.
Okay, these are, so, so that top one is change to parks and open land, because it's a park.
Oh, it's all right, that's the little V park that's got the monument in it, right?
Isn't that by one of the council members' homes?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, that's where Old Bingham splits off from 90th right there, and it's got that.
Oh, yeah,
UTA
yeah,
Property with the monument.
Yeah.
Yeah, make it a park.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, the next one is the,
you got a picnic table there, it's gotta be a park.
is the track station parking area. We're just thinking maybe it's, just makes sense to change that. just to be consistent with everything that's around it. Okay. Yep. So there's a storage unit on that property, so that would go from the pink to the purple.
Now that one's Mountains End Supply, they're a contractor.
Okay.
What's on the property immediately east to it, Ray?
East is Springfield Supply.
You know, the one
It's a-
that you got the arrow pointing to go to light industrial that's got the storage.
To the right,
What's the property immediately to the east?
Supply.
I don't remember that.
it's Sprinkler Supply, I think. Where that,
Oh, okay. So,
The red lines on this map are not in the right place. The road curves where you see the,
sprinklers over
Anyway.
here. Oh, standard plumbing.
yeah, I was just,
Okay. Next one.
I was just wondering if sprinkler supply is better if fit in a commercial or a light industrial, and we make that entire section purple and clean that up. Is that,
apparently we've moved on.
yeah, I'm just talking about this piece that's due east of. Yeah, I mean, that's standard plumbing right there.
What color is,
Light industrial's purple.
Right, yeah, that's the gas station.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
All right.
so change it.
Yeah.
Okay. This one's kind of an odd one. I'm not sure why it was Research Park to begin with, but on the north and south sides of it, it's all industrial, and it's kind of developed over time as industrial. So we just think it makes sense to change it to.
Wait, isn't Navigator Point in there?
Yeah, the big parcel to the west of the word Navigator is a charter school.
and charter schools can be in whatever zone, so that's why they put them there.
That's right.
That's why they apply for them in industrial areas. Because they can.
And it's cheaper.
Yes, but they're there, so do we want industrial next to an existing charter
The
school? I
industrial's
guess
already there.
It's there.
they're already everything there, yeah. Okay,
All good with that one? Okay,
Yeah, that makes the entire street purple, right?
does.
Let's clean it up.
Yeah, if you could refer to the zones by their colors instead of by their names.
in the
you know.
lines. With little
Like-
squares.
This one's
This,
currently pink.
this
We'd
one's
like to
just a
make it
mapping
green.
error. We're just gonna drop the pink down to the road.
okay.
And then the one over on the left, can you scroll over? Oh, let's, no, let's wait on that one. Oh, okay, we're there. Let's start in with the fun ones.
So, wait, hold on just a second.
Yeah.
I'll go on this one and I'll come back to the one that Scott will know which piece of property I'm talking about here in a minute. So let's do these and we'll come back to the goofy corner in the neighborhood.
So the, the one at the top is a water tank, so we're just looking at changing that from the yellow to the blue.
By the way, that's yellow because of the leftover rainbow that used to be there. And we rezoned around the rainbow, by the way.
Then we build a water tank and
pride,
that's
baby.
there, so that's just to reflect the existing use of that piece.
It takes water for rainbows. So,
Okay, the one just below that, so those are all those pad sites that are just on the east side of Smith's. We think that really just needs to go to commercial rather than a mixed use.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the one below that, where the cursor is, that's, yeah, I think storage, so we're looking at light industrial on that one. So that'll change it from the pink to the purple.
What's the,
Yeah, it reflects the zoning as well, so.
what's the park and open space there? I don't. The one that's to the right of the one that's got the storage in it, right there on the corner.
That's
the
the power
that's-
corridor.
Oh, that little tiny thing,
The green, no, he's talking about the green to the
green
right of
dot.
that.
That one.
Yeah,
That blue's the Maverick, right?
we could change that.
That blue is the substation, the power substation. The pink to the right of the blue is the Maverick.
Yeah,
The green is the power corridor. It's the
right.
power lines.
Okay,
You can play
The
on
next
there as long as
one.
they don't break.
this is Bowman Arrow property. You're all familiar with it. We took this to the general plan committee. They're interested in seeing some commercial along that frontage. They were interested in seeing maybe some mixed-use product where you've got the commercial on the ground floor with the apartments on the upper levels.
Like a extended stay hotel kind of commercial. Sorry. That's been tried so successfully in so many other places in the city that I think we should keep doing it.
There's
Ground
been
floor
some interest in keeping some park space there on, I know that we talked about, Commissioner Green talked about that park that's to the north. I think it was Commissioner Green, or was it you? I
See,
can't
it
remember.
doesn't make sense to have this set aside for future park when you got Maple Hills 4 blocks, 3 blocks, 2 blocks to the north.
yeah,
Yeah, in fact, I would rather see, by the way, if we do want, while we're in the neighborhood, just since you got it up here, to the west of where that future park is, between 7590 or whatever that street is and 78th, where the fire station is, that light green area that is, there's a trail and there is natural vegetation,
Weeds.
weeds. I would just assume if there was going to ever be money put into a park there, make that usable green space instead of weeds. Put the grass there and make it a nice, enjoyable place to go for a walk or a run, as opposed to a place where you hold your nose to go for a walk or a run. Am I right?
Would you rather see that park space as being out towards 78th, or would you like to see it more internal to the project?
Well, internal to the project is going to be in some sort of a planned community,
Right.
planned residential. It's going to be
Yeah.
here a playground, there a
Tot
dog
lot.
park, there a community garden, whatever. Let the developer propose what the developer will propose, but that's not even in the zoning or future land use map. That is in the subdivision plat. I mean,
Yeah.
that's,
Anything closer to 78th is 78th is going to be too busy to have
we,
that close.
we just need to get rid of the green there because it's just not going to happen. And as council
was-
member Green said, it causes issues for many people.
yeah, and it was put there as a land swap for the fire station or something else way back. This is before my time, which is
I heard the
Long
chair
time
say,
ago.
let's get rid of green.
it's a popular sentiment. I've heard that from a couple of people. No, never mind. Anyway,
So I guess the question for us is, do we agree with the general plan committee that mixed use belongs in that yellow box?
I would rather see the whole triangle redone
That,
than just that corner.
I think that yellow box needs to be matching the pink to the east of it. Me and all commercial right along 78th. Not a mixed-use commercial where we have Starbucks and extended stays, like commercial.
Real commercial?
Right? The biggest thing my biggest takeaway from when we did our public hearing on Bowman was that the people west of Mountain View don't like having to cross Mountain View for every single thing that they have to go get.
So
So
I
we
think
need-
we want pink. We're lobbying for the green to turn pink.
Green
Oh,
pink?
it's the part of the green that's in the yellow.
The part of the green that's in the yellow is pink.
The light green and the dark green that are in the yellow should be pink.
Well,
Well,
I
the
don't have a
light green,
prob-
I don't think
I
can
don't
be.
have a problem with the light green because that's just an
Yeah.
extenuation of the
The
trail.
trail, that's the trail.
Could I jump
It's a
in here?
wash.
You probably didn't hear my conversation with Greg Davenport. The light green has to be there. It's the open channel.
Yeah, that's fine, but
need that.
the
Couldn't, you
dark
couldn't
green,
pipe.
The dark green, it's not needed for detention. But as Greg pointed out, that area, as we know firsthand from the fire station, has soils that is susceptible to collapse if not properly dealt with. And so
So it would need to be
we can
properly
do
done.
that. We'll have to be really mindful of any development in that area, so.
Can that wash be piped and put under a parking lot?
Why not
but then
extend
you're
the
getting
trail?
rid of the green space.
I would have to be really careful it was piped and put into a parking lot to know that we had adequate capacity. As we learned in our last storm, typically we keep natural channels open because they have more space than, say, a 100-year storm. When you put a pipe in a channel, you lock the capacity of that channel. So if you have more, that means the city's saying, we're okay if the surrounding areas flood. So that's why in our code today it says we shouldn't pipe unless there's a very, very good reason. So if we did allow that to be piped, we would want to make sure that it had a way in case the pipe got plugged or if we had a bigger storm that it wouldn't flood someone out. In the areas that are east of this,
What out the fire station is all, you know.
right, there's a condominium area, whatever, they piped it, but they put a natural channel trail on the top so that people could still use it and we could get to the pipe.
This is
And
piped
it wouldn't
under.
flood anyone.
This is piped under 6400 West, right there.
Right. But if it goes up and over, it will go into the street and it will go down to 78. There is an overland flow
I just mean
area
if
for
the
that.
pipe continues from 6400 West and that pipe was just another 200 meters.
Again, I
it's-
think that I would have to look to see what the use was exactly and that it was safe before I told you, yeah, let's do that.
But you don't have an issue with us putting pink instead of green in the yellow box, just
If
not
you-
the light green, right?
If you did that, right, I still have code that says it has to stay open.
For
so
the
I
light
don't-
green.
No,
Whether it
you
be
could- you
light
could put
green or
pink all
whether
the
it
way
be
across
pink,
it, you could
the
just have
current
to get
code
creative
for this,
around
the current city
ditch.
code says you cannot pipe a natural channel that's identified as a natural channel without permission from, and it says probably the city engineer or whatever, and it may change to the public utilities now that we've split, but the permission would be, I would have to know that it would not endanger another property.
You're only speaking to the
Okay.
light
So-
green portion of the map,
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, so what I'm saying is
The-
it's not
there's one other,
impossible.
yeah, it's not impossible. The one other thing you want to consider, though, the one other thing you do really want to consider is there's a natural trail that goes all the way from the railroad tracks all the way down to, say, 56. If you cut this portion out, make sure you replace it so that people can do
There's
that.
no trail there.
There is no trail.
Isn't there a trail that goes along the wash area right there?
It's
It
all
stops at
like,
64.
Right.
yeah, it stops
Right.
at 64.
Huh?
It stops at
Stops at
64.
64th on the corner of 64th by the fire station.
Oh, we can extend
No,
it.
no. And the trail begins, in the areas that are developed, there is a trail right now. That's
Right.
what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
So the areas, even east of 64, there is a trail that goes all the way down to 82, and then it follows 82 down to 56, and then it gets into Stone Creek. So there are more reasons why that was included there than
That's
just
the
because of
Mountain
drainage.
View Trail goes from 78 south. There's no trail between Mountain View and 64th.
I don't think Greg's saying there's currently a trail in some of those areas, but there's a wash that's reserved
You're
for a
saying there's
future
trail on a-
paved
on a
trail.
plan somewhere.
There is a 10-foot wide area that people can walk on from SR 111 to 64. There's a break, and then there's a community trail through Addenbrook,
Right,
and those areas that go all the way down to 82.
right.
Then you can take a larger sidewalk, because they've got like a 10-foot sidewalk,
There's-
all the way down to 82 until you cross 56, and then you have an actual
Yeah, it's on
trail
the south
system
side.
all the way
Some of
to,
it just might look like native grasses and plants.
but it
right
actually
now.
is there.
I think some of it is actually shoulder of the road.
And right, remember, I'm using the trail loosely. It might be a larger
The Opus
sidewalk,
Trail, and
like a
then
10-foot
there's
sidewalk,
Neptune.
or a,
it's not.
Yeah,
So,
and
so
I don't
Zach might be
promise
thinking like the
because
Jordan
this
River Trail.
whole
No,
neighborhood
there's
is
nothing like the
sinking.
Jordan River Trail, but there is a physical walking connection all the way through that area.
There's a trail
Okay,
through Gladstone.
You okay?
not on the north side of 78th. On the north side of 78th from 64th, there's nothing.
Right, but when you go west of 64, there is a trail, correct?
Yeah,
there
west
is.
of 64th, there is
Right,
a
but this
sidewalk.
isn't developed. It's undeveloped property. That's why there's no physical trail there now.
Right.
I'm just
So
saying,
there's a trail on a plan.
it's a trail on a plan, and that's why it's green. It's not just because of the drainage channel.
And someone had mentioned because of the sinking land that the area around the fire department and the neighborhood I'm in and the houses in that area were all having foundation issues.
Correct.
That's gonna be a problem still with this area,
No
just.
matter how you general plan it or zone it,
Mm-hmm.
that soil is collapsible. We had 2 feet of soil consolidation in the fire station.
Yeah, well, I
It was
know my own
crazy.
house is splitting the foundation and the house across the street is getting theirs fixed. Like everybody's
So,
fixing their foundations.
so I'm just saying, there were probably some original reasons why they had it the way they did for other reasons, so make sure you
Right.
consider those. Sorry.
But I think we still want the yellow box aside from the light green to be pink.
Sure,
Yep.
however you want it.
Okay,
And then,
Ray?
Ray, I'm just thinking that green, if we change the dark green inside the yellow box, we change that to the pink and make it the community commercial, mixed-use commercial, the green area to the north needs to be at least, I would say that, and I'm gonna throw this out, but anything about halfway through that piece of property that borders the property on the other side of 64th needs to be medium density residential to match the neighborhood across the street. Does that make sense? So the green box to the north of the yellow, or the green section north of the yellow box.
Right.
And almost anything that parallels up to the road where, on the south side of Maples Hills Park, needs to be medium, that needs to be medium density so that we know that it's compatible with the neighborhood across the street.
Got it.
And really, I would rather look at the whole triangle holistically as opposed to piecemealing this. The whole thing should probably be PC or PRD.
But we don't have PRD on a land use map,
Yeah, we're just looking.
on a
Oh,
future land
that's
use.
the zone, you're right.
Yeah.
So, whatever, the whole thing needs to be looked at, it can't be piecemealed.
Well,
Because the whole thing's gonna be, I mean, if the current application doesn't pass, another application for the whole thing is gonna come through anyway. Either we have a say in it or we don't. And so if we're gonna just wait and see what the developer keeps proposing and keeps saying, nah, closer, no, and not give any guidance and just leave it sitting here with this 10-year-old future land use map.
Well, I think that's why we're getting rid of the green and we're gonna
Yeah,
put
we're
pink
taking a
and,
piece of it, but we're not taking the rest of it. We need to do the whole thing.
but I agree with Kelvin that abutting those existing homes, it needs to be the same.
Right, and if we just change that part, you've still got now medium to low density residential going across Mountain View Corridor,
Yeah,
Well, that'd be a great
that's the
place. I
other-
bet
so
you could
it-
get a house for cheap there.
right?
So it sounds like what you're talking about is just transitioning that density from west to east.
Yes, I think
Yeah,
so.
I mean, denser against the freeway, right?
Yep.
Move it to medium density, which is kind of what's on the application that's been
Other
proposed
than the
most
commercial piece
recently.
at the bottom, isn't that kind of how he did it? Very high density, medium density? Is it kind of just
Yeah,
washed
it's
that way?
kinda, it's pretty much what
Right?
the
I mean,
application
the only
is.
real issue I had with it was the lack of commercial. Like he wanted to take all the commercial out. Otherwise, I didn't actually have a problem with what he
Yeah,
proposed.
and that was according to what's in the IOZ for that property too, was take the commercial out.
But for sure, change the green to pink before you bring it back to us. What else?
Yep, green to pink. All right, anything else on this one?
Are you sure, Mr. Nguyen? Do you have anything?
I live right there, so that was it.
Put your, oh, yes, we will be taking away
Taking
your
away my
park.
park. But I get it. I mean, I live right there. I have a great view right now, and I'd have a great view if that remained a park. But it doesn't make sense to me when we've got the brand-new park just up the hill from that.
Yeah.
We also, we really do need, as we're talking about that area, we need to decide, and maybe it's not the place tonight, but we need to decide what we want the gravel pit north of Maple Hills Park to be.
But
What-
the
what-
gravel pit is Salt Lake County, right? So we first,
No, that's
is
in
that
our,
ours?
that's in our,
It's
that's
ours?
in the city.
Is
Okay.
the gravel pit part of Bowman's Arrow?
No,
Harper.
How many years, Larry, do you think they'll still be there? How much more gravel is there?
He's actually been talking to the city for years about developing.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Active application on that property
Oh, okay.
for the last 5 years. Residential.
Kind of like dugouts they're gonna build into the,
see, I think it'd be great for a BMX track, but
yeah, it would. All right, what else, Ray?
All right, next.
I know, and, or ATVs, and it'd be great if we could.
We were scratching our heads on this one a little bit, on this corner lot.
It's already Ronwood.
What's that?
Which one?
Yeah.
Commercial, we've talked
Should
about.
we leave it open space and keep it for that use?
Commercial piece of Jordan Hills Villages, it's a couple acres. That's not correct, it's not 4M subdivision, that was the one farther to the south. This is a commercial piece on 8200. It's been commercial ever since Jordan Hills Villages.
So maybe we should turn it pink?
That's the piece of property that I wanted to talk about, Scott. That's the one that's still zoned PC. It's still zoned PC, but all the entitlement got pushed to Serengeti Springs and some other things. So this is a goofy piece of PC, and that was the development that the one developer didn't like and they wanted to do some really weird high-density stuff on the corner that didn't fit.
Jordan Hills Villages, and the way that was, the 618 acre Jordan Hills Village is the way you controlled the land use in the planned community was with the land use. So it was like the corner of U-111 and 78 was slated to be a commercial piece of Jordan Hills Villages. Now, it's still on the land use map as, commercial because PC allows both commercial and residential. But if you want it to be residential and not commercial, then staff needs to know. My recommendation would be to leave it commercial. It has occasionally, the only interest you get is for townhomes and stuff like that.
Yep.
You can't do that. But there has, in the last year, been more interest in developing commercial than there has been.
See, I want to leave that commercial, but I want to get the PC zone off of it.
There's no, the commercial will never go there. That's my neighborhood. The commercial will never go there.
You don't think a daycare might go there?
Nope.
Why?
Well, yes, a daycare will go there after it's zoned residential and somebody puts one in their basement. That is the only way.
Every day,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, no, that's the only thing that could ever go there would be like a gas station or.
Gas station or or a coffee shop would be perfect.
I don't think a coffee shop would even survive there. It's too isolated from everything else.
Pamela frequent it.
I would obviously, that would actually be, because it's right down the street from a school. It's right down the street from actually
Okay,
several
so
schools.
aside from Councilmember
A lot
Jacob,
of
does
people drive
anyone
on that road.
else have an issue with leaving it commercial?
It goes under Mountain View, yeah. There's
You're, they're
no
not
interchange.
listening, or?
Scott's got it.
So if the
Yes,
council
it's on all the roundabouts. Now it's on one of the roundabouts.
as is, commercial, on the land use maps, are we to assume that we need to rezone it to SC2 or SC1? Sorry,
Yes.
SC1.
Let's get the PC zone off of it because we know that the whole PC and the master development agreement with that entire PC with Jordan Hills Village has expired. We're not going to, this is the reason why I hated I hate our PC code when we put and say commercial is always last. Because this is what happens. Commercial ends up, a piece of property gets orphaned because everybody says, I want the entitlement for all of these houses. I want the entitlement for all the houses, they put it in, and oh, we couldn't get, it's just like that Mountain America Credit Union piece of property that's the PC over on 90th and whatever that is, it's farther west, where we had to, oh, yep, it was PC, we put the credit union in, but we can't do anything else now, so let's add more houses. And it was just, yeah, and this one, let's leave it commercial, but I think we need to get the PC off of it, because people were gonna try to say, well, we can do all these weird things with PC, because we can do because PC still got the exception to cap and grade, we can do the multi-density, and then they talk about, well, this is just part of the greater project, and it's like, no, we're done, we need to be done with that. This one needs to be rezoned, Scott.
Let me just throw out some food for thought before we get all commercially on this. The entire neighborhood around it is fully developed, right? I mean,
Yeah.
with the exception of if you go all the way down to one of the ranches,
Too, that's not.
Jones, right? No, yeah, Jones Ranch. With the exception of Jones Ranch, which is developing, which is mostly residential,
No, that did.
30
It's-
acres commercial.
right, down on the 90th and Bacchus corner.
Yeah, the detention pond is right here.
This is already developed. This has been zoned commercial for, I've lived out there for 15 years.
There's a block over that's not developed either.
It is, yeah, which is residential, but there's an application on that one. There's not an application on this one because nobody's gonna put commercial there. I mean, it would have happened by now. If a Starbucks could go there, Starbucks would have done it. It's,
But once you take away a commercial lot, then it's forever gone, pretty much.
right, but this is one of those where it will be forever a nice weedy field.
Well,
I'd rather see some good house development come there than, one street with 15 houses on it than a weedy field.
but then that defeats the purpose of when we did the PC zone, and they promised this commercial, and now we're just saying, oh, we gave up because
Well,
we
it
can't
was
do
ne-
commercial.
So you want to just dig in just for the sake of being right?
Right. That's what I'm
And
saying.
it
this
feels,
one?
it feels a lot like the property across the street from the library. Like, it should have been developed commercial by now, and at some point it has to be given up. For the sake of making the city look better, right?
It's not gonna go here. It's just not.
I'm on Zach's side with this one.
This is, my kids, my son still works at Fox Hollow. My kids went to Sunset Ridge. Now my kids are at Copper Hills. We drive past this all the time. I drive past this every time I come up 78th during rush hour because I don't come up 78th. I go up 82nd because 78th in rush hour is, yeah. And I drive past this all the time. It will never be commercial, I promise. It just won't. Especially if, by the way, 3 blocks to the north, you force Bowman's Arrow to have that commercial on that corner. What would go here instead of there? You're giving us so much a better spot 3 blocks away.
Okay, so
4
we
blocks
have
away.
2 that would like to see it change, I guess, to residential. Are there more than 2?
If you move it to residential, what do you think is going to go in there? High-density housing? Is it?
No, I would, well, it's whatever we tell it to, right? I would make it match what's around it, which, by the way, it looks like it's future land use for low density, that light tan.
It's low density,
And
yeah.
it's not low density. That's a PC zone as well, and those are not low density. Those are 5 to 6,000 square foot lots. That's not low density.
Go look at it.
I don't know why that's marked as low density. When you look at the orange to the, just look at it. Look at the more orange to the south, that's been built in since then, the Three Rivers area, I think is what we call that, something like that. Something about 3 and rivers. Those houses are zoned here as medium density, and that's low density. Just look at the size of the lots. I mean, you don't even need a
No, they're
ruler.
packed in there on that corner.
That is not low density.
Yeah, we could look at it, as far as that, and then maybe extend,
Well,
well,
if it is gonna
maybe
change, I would
if it
just change
is.
it to match and just make it single family, probably R16 or R18 at the
Mr.
most.
Pengro, what do you have to share being from the economic side?
So a couple insights on this parcel. So this is on a collector road, which is about 8,000 cars per day. That's the traffic. The one thing that sticks out to me with this is that there's no, the only traffic that's using this road is going home or leaving home. I don't, as far as I'm aware, there's not traffic patterns that would indicate people are passing through an area to get somewhere else, which limits the commercial viability of that location because it's just a single parcel. So my guess would be best case scenario for a retailer to go there, you might be able to get an independent gas station. Knowing Holiday, Maverick, they're not gonna be interested. It would be, like a 7-Eleven, a convenience store, a C-store, something like that. Maybe an independent dentist office or something like that, but it's really not a wonderful location for retail, from my perspective.
Mark, can you move the map so I can see what's above it? Thank you.
Would it be possible to, I mean, how big is this? I guess, how many acres?
About 10, isn't it, Scott? Or is it 2?
What if could we entertain the idea of doing an accessible park? Something more for handicapped
If you
kids?
can come up with $1 million.
Like the one that's straight south of there at Ronwood? There's one right
It's a
there.
little community park that's
know.
just for that, is what I'm thinking.
We don't
Because
do
sometimes it's
community
intimidating
parks
for,
'cause they're too hard to maintain.
Yeah,
just a thought.
I don't think it's a bad thought, but
Not a
that's
lot of
not
land.
the way the Parks Department wants to do parks, because small parks are hard to maintain. And we do have one here in Veterans that's,
Just a
it's
thought.
kind of off, so. So are we okay with it going to housing then? Yes. Yes? Yes. Trish, were you a yes or, okay. So I'm seeing the majority of us say, go ahead and put that into housing for 2 acres.
Okay, and then we'll
Except
look
for
at the,
Mr. Green has a strong
we'll
opinion,
look at the
I think.
other area as well.
Well, what I'm saying, Ray, is look at the area that it surrounds it and across the street and to the north. Are those really reflective of the future land use map of those? And if they're not, let's fix that whole corner, and maybe even as you go farther west by the little park and the public facility there, that strip, maybe we need to look at that. Scott, you can see where I'm going with that. But no matter what we do, we need to rezone that property. Whether away from PC, we rezone it to R18, we do something as a new starting point and get rid of the PC off of it. I think the PC is causing the problem.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Next one. This is just part of the Ronwood Park. We see that as just going to
Well, if
open
we leave
land.
it blue, we could maybe build a high school there. I hear we might need another high school.
Water tanks, we can put water tanks.
Yeah, hurry and change the
We want to
grade.
make Ronwood Park show as a park. Dang, what's wrong with this?
Weird.
Any problems with that? Okay. Next one.
See ya.
So on the north side, the Salt Lake, there's a planned development that is proposed. All the area that's in yellow off to the left of the screen is part of the Wood Ranch project that we just finished up a year ago. There's another development that's on the table that's in Salt Lake County. It's another planned development. So what we're recommending is actually just moving that yellow or shifting that yellow further over to the east to match what the county or what's being proposed in the county on that.
Now, this is in the annexable or soon to
It
be
is.
annexed?
It's not, yeah, it's not in the city right now. It's just, it's part of the, it's in the annexation
The
policy
annex is
declaration
complete
area.
though on the west of that, right? The big square part? Okay.
Except you all should read, I can't find it right away, but y'all should read the part in here where it has South Jordan's statement on the county map. It's very interesting.
There's an area that's off to the right of that that's shown as Research Park. So that's just on the east side of U 111. What do you think of that? Yeah, that's it's the gravel pit.
I'm kind of willing to leave that for now. See what comes as Wood Ranch develops. So you got Bacchus is the main, so this is the not Daybreak area? Well, I don't remember what it's called now. It used to
Woods
be
Ranch.
Woods Ranch, yeah. The not Daybreak.
Doesn't have the topography as the property outside the city. You go farther north on the research park and it really is kind of a big valley. This property would be much easier to develop in whatever you want to develop.
Is it like that piece of property that borders up with West Valley, right there, that's got that new subdivision going in?
Yeah.
I've driven through that a bunch of times, and that's actually not a bad area, and the way they've kind of done that is pretty good.
Well, if Bacchus Highway ever gets widened completely and becomes the thoroughfare that they claim it is, right? That's a potential. I mean, I wouldn't mind leaving that as research park or professional office and just see what happens. I mean, it may or may not ever come that way, and somebody might apply for something else, but I'm fine leaving it.
Do you need direction from us on that? I feel like you
Would
asked
you like
a
to- would you
question
like
and we
to-
ignored you.
Would you like to leave it as it is, or?
Anyone have issues with leaving it as it is? We're okay.
Okay. Leave it as it is. Next one. Okay, there's a mapping error on the left and a water tank on the right. So, do you have any issues with either of those changing?
Fixing
Changing
them
that?
to reflect what they are? We're in favor of all of those changes
Okay,
that
we're
reflect
good.
what it really is.
Okay, next.
You know what? We need you to speak in the mic because the meeting's being recorded.
So Greg just had a comment of this line here on the west side of just moving that over to incorporate all of the city property. So just quick change there.
What is that considered? Yeah, it's a grassy corner with a ditch through it. What
That is
it
actually
considered a
our
park?
zone 4 water tank and our pumping facilities up to zone 6. That has space for another tank and some more other facilities. There also is a detention facility on that property that cannot be relocated. So we should include the whole property as part of public facilities. West Jordan actually is the owner of both properties all the way up to the road.
Right, I think some people think of that as a park, not just because it's green, but because
It is green, but I don't know that it'll stay green with all the new water requirements. Because it's not open as a park, it may change to a rock facility in the future, and Isaac can speak to that.
like are we talking like Aerosmith or like say rock
Sorry,
facility?
I was just going to mention on the northwest corner of that lot, that's also the main transmission line for Rocky Mountain Power. So there's two massive transformers there and that's what's gonna feed all of the additional housing development up there.
If, as we do get rid of that park, may we please replace it somewhere up there somewhere, please?
I think that's a good idea, Zach. I think that there was always supposed to be a park there. Now there's a subdivision. We probably need to have a plan of how we're going to replace that. I'll talk with Isaac.
Thank you.
I know there's the two little neighborhood parks that were community built with crappy grass, but yeah. I'm not saying it was your fault. Did you build that park? Were you there when that was built? Okay, so it's his fault.
All right, Ray, what else?
So green to light area, next.
Are there any others that aren't just cleanup of making them be what they really are?
Let me just take a quick look here.
That's our future economic area. We need it.
It is. So we're, as part of the future land use map, part of the general plan, we're looking at actually coming up with yet another land use category. And for like a mixed commercial industrial office space. Right, so it would be very similar to what we've got to the north, which is the planned community or the planned community designation, but we're looking at maybe doing a mixed commercial industrial office in that area. Mark, can you just kind of outline or show where that area is?
It's just south of the Jones Ranch, right?
Can you orient us?
Yeah, that
Where we're
blue,
at?
the blue right there in the middle is the new elementary school and the place for the high
So
school.
where he's pointing is Jones Ranch.
It's a place for the middle school.
Where he's pointing is Jones Ranch, and that's all been approved. This area is just on the south side of that, south of 90th.
And what do you want to put it as a,
Into a mixed commercial industrial office.
Similar to what the council, some of you've seen the Gardner propose. It's
So
a mixed use, but more heavy on the industrial than retail commercial.
This area would correspond with the Southwest Quadrant ordinance that you passed a month ago. So this would actually be the implementation area. The land use map would then reflect the ordinance.
whoa, that's weird, Larry.
Yeah, well,
I think that's a good idea.
but you know, the land use map wouldn't be the entitlement, but it would, the entitlement would follow with the zoning of Southwest Quadrant, but the land use map would drive that.
Okay. Are there any objections to doing that? Okay. What color are you going to choose for that? Like,
I don't know. We're running out.
Well, you can see
Oh,
they
so-
got creative up on Jones Ranch and Wood Ranch. You can see that different designation.
Yeah, this would be a great time to just show you what the blue colors are on the map. So the very light blue is just your public facilities, the stuff that's in the kind of the on the southwest side of the map, or on the lower left-hand side of the map. That's all Research Park, and then the color that's along U-111, that's all just professional office. And just as a side note, the General Plan Committee did like the idea of putting professional office up against that, the U-111. But this would all be under a different designation, which would be addressed through like a master development agreement and all that, so. Yeah, anything that's in the yellow would be low-density residential, medium-density residential.
because it's up on the hills. Well, that's why you've got office buffering it.
That's why it's there now, is just have like a buffer between U-111 and all the residential stuff off either side.
Okay.
But this would change to that new designation.
In Daybreak, Ashton property. Oh, the middle school's on Jones property by Antelope Island or Antelope,
It's the
whatever.
top right, it's the
Whatever,
blue one.
Antelope School.
Antelope Canyon. It's the blue that's on the top right of the map. That's where the middle school goes. Right there, right next to our picture. Wave.
Yeah. All right.
Any problems with any of that? So the last one, it's on the lower right-hand side of the screen, is just changing that from, it's a detention basin, so we'll go from light industrial to like public facilities.
You're gonna go from purple to blue or whatever.
Purple to blue.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Oh, is there any more? Yeah. Yeah, that's a water tank, so.
We don't need to discuss it. If there's something like that, then I'd suggest blue.
Oh, yeah, that's the track station, so that's, the one that's showing up here in the yellow is the track station, so we probably ought to change that to public facilities.
Is there vacant land around that track station? Then that's gonna have to be a stationary plan, so.
That's true.
All right, thank you. Does anyone have a map question? If not, we're gonna move into the document.
Sorry.
Okay. I don't see anything else, Ray, thank you.
We've got one, sorry.
Okay. Alan.
So just on, it seems like down there where that track station is, we probably want to look at more high-density residential. We're not seeing any high density in this lower quadrant,
Yeah,
especially along U-111.
yeah, I pulled up Google Maps right there, and it would be really kind of an ideal spot for some high density. See?
Well, isn't Ivory? Isn't Ivory proposing some high density west on U-111 as part of the Jones Ranch South Industrial Park Master Plan? It's gonna have some high density in it as well, if I'm not mistaken, last I heard.
So
And I'm
should
not
we
sure if it's still, Ivory, but somebody, I think it's Ivory that's looking at that.
Well, I think what we know is that in our documents, it says that where does high density belong? Near track stations and major corridors, so. Mr. Gardner.
I think, just my recommendation, you may not have to make that decision tonight because this area is going to be subject to a station area plan, which is going to encompass a much larger area. We've already contacted South Jordan and they're interested in planning because it's on the border of the city. And so you don't necessarily have to work out the land use because it's going to come before you anyway with this
As a stationary plan, yeah, and I'm sure it'll have housing in it.
So do we want to keep this or as it is and just change it later then?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Okay, are we okay moving on to the document? Mr. Anderson's gone, so we're going to move on to this document. I thought, I can't remember his Larry, what's Bob's last name? Or Ray, do you know? Lively. Mr. Lively had a really good point. As I read through this, and as he's read through it and gone through it, we have lots and lots of goals. That's great, but oftentimes we set goals, especially in America, around January, but then no one holds us accountable to those goals, and we lose interest, and nobody remembers what the goal is, and then we came across another January and we think about it again. So the question is, how are we going to work on achieving these goals? It kind of reminds me of a moderate income housing plan that we used to submit ideas, but never really how we're going to get there. And now we have to submit how we're going to get there. So I think that we need to, he wants to know who's going to be assigned to each goal. So I think that's something that we probably do need, Mr. Lee. We need to have staff that's in charge of these goals because otherwise, there's a lot of pages in here that we ought to just get rid of. because they're just goals. And if they're just goals and all they're going to do is sit in a plan for another 4 years or 8 years till another council says we need to redo this, they're kind of a waste. So unless we're going to have steps to achieve these goals and someone's going to track these goals, maybe we don't need goals. I don't know. Yes.
It's, as I've been reading through the goals, it seems like there are different categories of goals. There are those that are just kind of ongoing. And we as a planning staff, when we're presenting, maybe a land use change or rezoning, we rely on those ongoing goals, to include with your staff reports. But there are also some other goals that are, that are achievable, like in the 2012 general plan. There were a lot of them that the city did achieve, and they were done. And then those have been removed from this plan. But so it just seems like as you're working through this, it would be good to kind of separate those out, and then just look at the ones that may have an end.
Okay. I think we need to, because otherwise I just don't know. Welcome, Councilmember Pack. It is 7:05 and Councilmember Pack has joined us. We're happy to have you. The way I would like to do this is to just go through this. If you have something, I'm going to call out the pages that I have things on. If you have something before my next page, please state that you do, and we'll look at that. And we'll just go through this hopefully fairly quickly. So my next thing is on page 17. Does anyone have something before 17?
How in depth would you like to get? So there's a number of small grammatical things that obviously I don't think we need to jump into. But for example, on page 7, you go through the survey respondent by area on figure 1.2. The Southwest is clearly more than 16.1%. And those numbers don't add up to 100.
I think some of the grammatical stuff will be corrected by staff, so.
That's what I'm curious about. How in depth do we want to get? Are we talking about subject matter or just little things like that?
Subject matter, because I think that if we want to get into the minutia, then it'll take us forever, because.
I think you can highlight it if there's an issue, but.
Yeah, I'm
Ms.
more than
Hanson.
happy to take submissions of
Input.
those things. And as I've been reading through it, like I've corrected several things as I go along. And some of that has just been the transfer over from multiple Word documents into this one. So don't stress. I'll be going through it again for accuracy.
So I didn't bring mine because it's electronic. Do we have a way of saving our comments from that electronic file and sharing it? What's the name of the program that we're using?
PrimeGov.
Yeah, PrimeGov.
We will send you an email with information on how to do that after this meeting.
You can also just save it as a PDF to your device and then mark up to your heart's content.
Well, I've been marking it up in PrimeGov. The question is, how can I then share those over to the city?
Just hope that they don't update it, because then all of your stuff disappears.
That's why local saving and updating is
So,
what I like.
I have my paper copy. So on page 17, I just have a question on goal 6. It says, support and incorporate the land use recommendations of the Wasatch Front Regional Council's Wasatch Choice 2050 plan as applicable. And I just wondered if that's required and why we included that goal. And if nobody has an answer, then I want it removed.
Let's remove it.
Okay, Cassidy? Page 17, remove goal, nope, hang on, Larry might disagree.
Does everybody agree with you?
I would be very careful, because transportation funding comes through Wasatch Front Regional Council. So let us research that before we remove. I know we have to be compliant with, or at least trying to achieve, the Wasatch Front 2050 plan. I don't know if you have anything to add, Duncan or Rob, but I would, research that.
Okay, please check and get back to us and let us know why.
Cassidy, you have the misspelled word in there too, right?
Yeah, I know.
Okay, just making sure.
I was looking through it again and I was like, I am embarrassed at the state of this document, but it's a working
Odor,
draft, so.
yeah, okay. Stinking?
My next one's page 20. Okay. On goal 2, it says, here's a hole if you want a paper copy. Goal 2 says that And maybe Councilmember Jacob knows, maybe they did at some time decide to do this, but street systems should eliminate dead-end roads, okay, hammerheads, okay, and cul-de-sacs? Do we really want to eliminate cul-de-sacs? I don't.
Except in areas where there's no alternative for connectivity. So
Why would that
if
even
you
be?
can connect into other roads, you should connect into other roads. If you can't, then you have these options. That's what they're saying.
Doesn't that naturally happen?
I just don't
Sometimes.
know why a goal is to get rid of cul-de-sacs when people like to
Right.
live on
I
them.
mean, like, for example, sometimes, yes, because you're right. Because, like, over off of 5490, where those, like, new cul-de-sacs, every time somebody sells off their 5-acre parcel and builds a new.
But see, we can't get around
what's
that.
their
That
buckets,
just
like
happened, yeah.
bowlers? Done that. They build a cul-de-sac where it could connect to 5490, but it doesn't. They build a cul-de-sac instead, so.
So cul-de-sacs, generally lead to non-connected neighborhoods. That's the problem on the east side of the city. That's the reason our arterials are generally clogged on the east side of the cities because there's no connection between neighborhoods. Yeah, canals and cul-de-sacs, and so I'd be careful. Let us do a little bit of work on this, if that's okay. And then my boss wanted to say something, so
It's a policy decision. This is why it's coming before you. You can certainly decide one way or the other on this. Cul-de-sacs are desirable to live on from a service delivery perspective in terms of length of linear feet of road, linear feet of sidewalks, linear feet of water systems, wastewater, stormwater, speed of response for first responders. Cul-de-sacs are very, very inefficient. So planning, land use in general is kind of starting to move away from cul-de-sacs, but they are very desirable to live in. So that's the trade-off. That's the policy discussion.
Sounds like there's
That's
a
the
balance
trade-off.
to strike, is what it sounds like.
So that basically is my question for this body, because I already kind of thought those ways. That it's really up for us to decide, do we really want to set a goal that we're getting rid of cul-de-sacs? Because what occurs then is a staff report will be written, if a developer has it, and they'll say, based on these findings and this goal, we don't like this one because they have a cul-de-sac. Do we really want that? I personally don't, but I'm one of 14, so I need input on this.
I would maybe change the word eliminate to minimize. Should
Okay.
minimize dead-end roads. That way it still allows for them, but it doesn't prohibit.
Or make it so that it's like a last option.
Yeah, minimize means you strive not to have them, but you can still have them. If there's a, you got a
Because there is a
compelling
few
reason or
times that
whatever.
that's going to be the case, or same thing with the dead end, but I agree, I'd love to live on a cul-de-sac, but servicing them, it's not so much.
Kind of, a little bit you do.
I do.
It has the look of one, a little bit.
It's a good parking lot in front of my house.
All right, so are we all okay with asking staff to change eliminate to minimize? Okay,
I don't think
please.
it matters too much. I think it's already probably covered under where there is no alternative, but either way.
I just don't want it coming back and having somebody be told they can't have one because it's goal. Page 18, goal 12. This is for staff. Encourage proper maintenance and/or rehabilitation of existing housing and neighborhoods.
What page was that again?
Page 21. Sorry, I didn't give it to you. 21. Oh, yeah, I did. I'm sorry. I just want to know how's that, we're setting this goal, so how are we going to achieve this goal? Maybe this is for Mr. Lee. I don't know who's to answer this. And it is goal 12. Encourage proper maintenance and/or rehab of existing housing and neighborhoods.
This is a fair goal. Lots of cities have these kinds of goals in their neighborhood maintenance ordinances and those types of things. We try to achieve this goal through our code enforcement division and through the use of our CDBG funds.
Okay. Just remember, some of these questions I ask because I may have been asked them. And I want to make sure I have the city answer and not something I make up. Well, yeah, that's true. 22. Again, what will this look like? Goal 15, I can tell you what it used to look like, but continue to promote annual neighborhood cleanup campaigns. What will that look like in our city?
We do one on Triumph Lane every year, undo 70th South, annual cleanup.
Okay.
Yeah, don't we do that now? I mean, every year.
You're right. We used to do like Comcast Cares Days and those types of things. Currently, this year, we are doing our neighborhood bulk waste cleanup 3 times a year at the Public Works facility where the dumpsters are provided. We're also doing things to support, like the fee waiver that just went before the city council for the 9/11 Day of Service and other neighborhood cleanup efforts like that.
So mostly that goal is dumpsters.
Dumpsters, but also some landscaping, tree planting efforts, litter pickup, those kinds of things.
Okay, great. Goal number 5, should we include schools as they are under a different political body? Because it says, ensure the adequacy of present and future public services such as culinary, water, sanitary, sewer, storm drains, schools, parks, recreation, public safety. Those things are all us, but schools, we don't,
Yeah, that's true.
that isn't us. So I'm not sure that schools is appropriate in this goal. I think so. It's a different political body. Are we okay with that?
Yeah,
I'm
we coordinate with the district, but it's not on us to build schools.
right, so I don't think it should be our goal. So please scratch schools unless there's a complaint. Some people wish we built schools. My next page is 57. And goal number 5, and maybe this is for someone in planning, it says senior housing developments should provide grade level single-story structure and other elements. It goes on, but why, as long as there's an elevator, do they need to be single-story? Are we talking over 55 communities? Why do we have this in here?
That just reflects our senior housing overlay ordinance, the code. It doesn't have to read that way.
Okay.
Totally up to you.
I think this would tend to draw a designation between a senior housing development and a,
Care center.
an assisted living or a care center or some kind of a thing. The main difference is if it's a senior housing development, this is just the thought that comes to mind. If you have a senior housing development that is multi-level, that is not an assisted living place, in case of fire, do not use stairs, or do not use elevator, use stairs. And if you have some of these people that are mobility challenged and can't get downstairs,
Okay.
that's just a thought that comes to my mind. I don't know if that's the origin of the code or not, but just a thought that I had.
And then on the same page, goal 5, under reserving existing housing, goal 5 says property owners should be encouraged to maintain their homes and properties. Is that code enforcement again? How are we going to encourage people to do that? Is that all code enforcement? Is our plan?
And HOAs for every new neighborhood, apparently.
Which I don't think is stellar because that adds to the cost.
We can also just encourage people and have like
That's when we, like, pick up your own after your own
most
dog poop.
awesome yard competitions and stuff like that. We can
Well,
talk to community
that's why I'm
engagement.
saying, if it's a goal, how are we going to achieve the goal? Is it just through negative code enforcement, or do we have another plan? Maybe we should. I think,
You can
I
grab
think,
that mic and bring it to your desk. That might be easier.
when the mayor and I went and did the little patio thing, I'm sure that's the whole part of that reason, is they do that contest so that they don't end up being a junk collector.
So I would answer your question, or whomever asked the question. Code enforcement's the obvious pick. But we also have other ordinances scattered throughout our different titles that landscape ordinance, other beautification. We've got sections in our code that require certain materials in planned communities for building architecture. We have design review standards for commercial. There's a lot that I think if push came to shove, I could create a whole list, but there's quite a bit that talks to or speaks to beautification. We have a Redwood Road overlay in our corridor study that talks about beautifying our gateways through the city. You'll be seeing
That's
the
not a homeowner, right? That's more.
true.
Yeah, right.
So one ordinance that the council and the commission will likely see in the near future is an update to our streetscape wall ordinance, which does tie in with some of our residential communities. So,
Great.
yep.
This one's just for Cassidy, page 59.
Kayleen, before you go off that one.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, Chair.
No
If you're asking, should we add some carrots to our sticks? I think that's a good suggestion.
Yes, that's kind of what I'm asking. Um,
And some doggy bags.
Here,
love that
here
idea.
it referenced, Cassidy, the Transportation Master Plan. I'm just hopeful that you could put a link to it there.
Yes, I will plan on putting links, especially on our electronic version of this plan.
Okay.
But
Not
another
in your
question,
paper
You
copy.
can't put it on mine?
Can't put it on her paper copy. She's over here.
can't
going
make
like
things
this.
appear out of thin air. I'm not quite that talented. As you go through the goals, though, another question I had is in the introduction of this plan, it actually says, the more detailed goals, policies, and implementation strategies should be in individual plans rather than the general plan where possible. So another thing I would think about as you go through in these goals, does it make more sense to put this underneath a plan or in a policy book than it does to have it in your general plan? As you think of specifics, right? Like, I appreciate that Scott said, oh, I can think of like X, Y, and Z where this goal goes, but does it make sense to have that goal in the plan if we already have it somewhere else? Which takes a lot of thought, and I know that's a lot of pressure to put on a meeting tonight, but that's something to consider as well.
But it's a very good thought. Page 66, goal 30. It says limit, yeah, if you have something in between, yell out. Limit the cuts to newly paved streets by 5 years after paving. I want to know how this would limit Google Fiber, because a lot of people want that to come in, and I don't want to be hearing that the city told them they couldn't cut the street because we just paved it yesterday.
I'm a poor fill-in for Public Works, but my understanding in working with Nate and the city engineering group is that we've coordinated with Google to show them, we produced a map. Are you aware of this map? No? We produced a map that shows all of our recent projects within the past 5 years. I think it was a 7-year map. And Google is going to do their very best to try and avoid those newer projects.
And that's great, but I don't want this as a goal because I don't want it to impede fiber that our residents are asking for. And I'm afraid that this goal could be used in that manner.
It says limit, not eliminate.
It is an ordinance. There's an ordinance that prohibits it, so.
It is an ordinance?
Yeah.
So what about if we need like a new water line or something like that? I know that's kind of like.
As with every, remember this as a limit?
Then maybe we need to change that ordinance.
If it said prohibit, then I'd have an issue, but it just says limit, right?
Yeah. That's what I was thinking too.
Remember that this says limit. There are always ways to, in every ordinance, there are certain things that can be any adjustment to exceptions to the plan. So, but there already is an ordinance in place that talks about road cut permits, and Google Fiber is aware of that, and they're working with the city to be able to implement their plan and still meet the ordinance.
I want assurance that the city is going to be working with them. I do not want to have someone call me and say, we couldn't get it on our street because the city told Google no because they just barely finished our road 2 years ago, so we have to wait another 3 years. Those won't be happy phone calls or emails to receive.
Let's just ask for an ordinance that we never say no to Google for anything, right?
Well, no, but, and I probably, I just worry sometimes in government, we don't necessarily figure out how we can, we find why we can't. And these little things concern me because they allow us to find why we can't instead of how we can.
The premise behind the code and then therefore this goal is to keep our streets healthy.
Right.
It's
I
the
get
longevity.
that. I
So,
get that.
Okay.
And I don't want them tearing up our street every other week because that's not good either. We've seen that on a street kind of near Mr. Quinney.
I don't know what you're talking about. I have no problem getting out of my neighborhood.
Let's see. What is a transportation demand management system? Is that a software or something? It's on page 68. It says, encourage the development of transportation demand management systems. We have a goal and none of us know why.
Is that like the little, the cell phone car counter technology that we all like got mad at and said, go away?
We'll look into that. That's more under Nate Nelson's purview.
Okay, thank you. And then on 71, utilize neighborhood traffic management program. Again, is that a software program maybe?
No, that's
what
the petition that neighborhoods can fill out to get speed bumps on their street.
That's the paper to fill out? Okay.
It's the program that says you fill out this paper and then you get your neighbors to sign it and then we do a traffic study and then we put you at the end of the list and in 15 years you're gonna have a speed bump.
No, I've heard it's 2 years recently.
Oh, it's not 15 anymore? Okay, that's good. We're making progress.
And this one,
It was once.
where'd he go?
Oh.
There you are. Scott, this one actually on page 72, it's improved the aesthetic quality of the city streets. And my thing was, do we want to add a goal to have walls be the same for aesthetics? Something with the walls we put up in this city.
Totally up to you. That's basically the direction we're drafting this ordinance that you'll see is some continuity in streetscape design. Isaac, he's not here, but he's developing a uniform, consistent streetscape landscaping pattern. This is kind of to dovetail or piggyback on that.
So I personally would like to see a goal. I really think we have too many, but I think a goal about our walls that has some continuity would really help
I
the
completely
city.
agree. Goals about walls are very important. They're
Well,
crucial.
especially on some of our
Nobody can build walls the way we can build walls in this city.
our
Nobody.
arterials.
Yeah.
You can't
Yeah.
put vinyl fence on an arterial where it gets torn down every week.
So maybe Cassidy, could you maybe work with development?
Yes.
And develop a.
I also have further questions, but they can wait until we go through the goals.
The next one is for you, Cassidy, 101. Just, it's like the map tonight. If we could maybe somehow sneak in some streets on there, just a couple, if possible.
So-
I know it might be hard, but if you could.
I will try and overlay it. It might take some creative GIS because this is a historical map that we don't have the base layer for, but
Well, my thought is even if we can just do some text next to the map.
I can do
mean,
that.
just something simple like 90 and 70. I mean, I don't think it has to be a full street name, but something to clue you into where you're at. On page 102, goal 4, it says encourage project development density to permit. Did I do that wrong? Encourage and? Never mind. Never mind on 102.
102, what goal?
Never mind. Never mind on that one. Can we take what? And pretend? I don't know if that works well for planning. We have a man here that used to work in fire. He might have some opinions on that.
Sure.
On 104, Cassidy, 4 and 5, unless someone sees something different, to me, they look like they're the exact same goal. Oh, the first, under avoid and mitigate
Policy
natural
3, yeah.
hazard.
Yes, but the second one is, they mean it more. It's like, it's
Okay,
for
well.
emphasis. It's,
Okay.
Yeah, I'll correct that. There's another spot where that's happened, so I have it on my list.
And then on goal 1 under preserve and restore, it goes adopt habitat design criteria for the preservation of wildlife and diversity.
What page are you on?
104, second half of the page. Goal 1.
And native and I don't know, it reads funny to me, Cassidy, is all.
He wants to say something about it.
Do you have
I just,
something, Ray?
I just get rid of the and resident.
Okay. I put down including instead of and, but something is just something. On 105, goal 3, just again, what does it look like? Utilize the natural features of the Oquirrh Mountains and Jordan River to promote a strong community identity for the city of West Jordan.
That sounds like it was lifted out of the Wood Ranch
That
development
is,
plan.
that is exactly Wood Ranch and Jones Ranch and anything up along that hillside, so.
So we're just going to add to the goals. Okay. Okay. 106, goal 3. Establish a mechanism to ensure proper installation of landscape and irrigation systems in new construction. Are we just doing that through when they have to have it?
Yeah, don't the engineers kind of have to approve that kind of thing?
Is that just part of the permit? You get the permit and then they come and check your work? Is that how that's going to happen?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that how that currently happens?
But once it's in, they
Is that
don't
how that
adhere to
currently-
anything but their own aesthetic
Yeah.
and don't conserve. That's the problem. You've got these HOAs going in, doing their own thing to conserve, and they're not following any conserve guidelines.
Residential is challenging. Commercial is easier to manage, for sure.
6 and 7 on this page, to me, again, seem to read exactly the same.
Again, they mean it more when they put it in there twice.
Emphasis. Number 9, promote public involvement in major capital improvement decisions for water acquisition projects. Is this a public hearing? What is this? How do we
And
involve
public involvement,
the
is that
public?
like public sector, or is that public as in like all the people? Which public?
That's them speaking out when we want to raise our taxes.
They don't do that.
What do you think, Mr. Davenport? Why is it a goal and what does it mean?
No, if it means having.
Let me rethink that and see if we can provide a better goal. We typically don't involve the public when we obtain water rights or when we do things, except for we held a public hearing when we want to increase our contract with Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District. So that's right now the only thing I can think of that would involve that. We also sometimes do wells, but they're very limited because there's not a lot of groundwater in West Jordan, and so I don't know how we would accomplish that goal, but.
Right, so.
Doesn't that go back to legal too, when you're trying to ascertain or acquisition water rights? And so, I mean,
Before we purchased anything, we would come to city council. It'd be a funding decision, right? And we would get their approval. That would be a public process at some point. There are some details that may not be given out to the public, but there would still be a public process. But maybe let's see if we can work on this goal.
Okay. 107, goal 7, encourage and offer incentives. Encourage and or, I'd like to add an or there just because it doesn't tie us into having to pony up money for sure.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, whatever. I don't see it as being any different, but that's okay.
On goal 10, adopt and enforce land use development regulations in areas near major generators of noise such as South Valley. So really this one is really, Duncan, it's really a legal question in court, who would decide if we did this or that we didn't do this? How would they decide that?
Regulations.
Mike,
So general plans, of course, are not mandatory, so it's how it's interpreted by the planning commission and council is what's important. So the more guidance you can give yourselves, so to speak, in the goal to be more precise, the better ability you've got to interpret and implement and use it later.
But the public is interpreting this different than what we're interpreting this.
They could. So yeah, that's why I say if you can clarify it and be more precise in the language as to what we're trying to accomplish. What do you think we're trying to accomplish there,
so
Scott?
I think this one either needs to be rewritten or taken out.
We have our airport overlay district that,
Right.
and we're hoping to
Completely inadequate, of
spur
course.
some economic development around the airport. So maybe this is a nod to that. I wasn't around to craft this one, so.
So nobody in the room has a clue.
Well, and like.
We'll talk about it if that's okay.
If you'll evaluate this one, because it makes me nervous.
Well, in railroad switching yards, I mean, that spot over off of 90th South by Allen's house, where the railway switching is a frequent recent cause of complaint or enjoyment, as the case may be. Yeah, they do it in the middle of the night, because they have to get back and forth.
So
across 90th.
this goes from 107, I would think this was 108, but then the next page is 110, so I'm not sure. It's the beginning of chapter 8. Anyway, we've included the different National Historic and Salt Lake County, but do we not want to say, I know later on it talks about West Jordan Historic Sites, but maybe right at the beginning of the chapter we could say that we have a couple. And then I just had a question on 111 on, we talk about Gardner Village and the different historic places, but we don't talk about Century Farms. I don't know if that should be a part of this or not, but I'm pretty sure an employee's mother would think that. And maybe they should be, I just don't know. So it's just something for staff to please
What is
maybe
Century
consider.
Farm? Some of us are not aware of
A
that.
Century Farm?
Oh, a Century Farm. I thought you were saying it as in it was an actual single location.
No, well,
Okay.
there are a couple of
Yeah,
Century
you're talking
Farms
about
in
like
our,
the Drake Farm.
Yeah,
and other
it's
things
not
like
the
that.
name
Okay.
of a subdivision or
I
something.
thought you were talking about like a specific destination, not
No.
multitude. Okay.
no. Places that have that destination, farms that have that destination in our city. 140. Again, you have a thing that repeats. These last two paragraphs on the right-hand side start this different, but then they end exactly the same. I think you're trying to keep me awake.
Did it work? Because it didn't work for me. I didn't make it this far.
Oh, is Chris still here? Is Pengra here?
Yeah,
Yes.
he's back
This
there.
one is for him. It's page 156. We need to add a 22. Well, it would really go on 157. We're going to add a 22 that says Landis Steakhouse and Trader Joe's. That's going to be
And a
the
liquor
goal for
store.
that page.
Where are you?
Oh, yes, and a liquor store and a Costco. Oh, this. So we're good.
It should be on your front so you can see it.
Goal 15, maybe Chris, this might be for you too. It says maintain open communication information sharing with the West Jordan Chamber West.
That one might have been me.
Oh, okay. I think it should just read Chamber West.
I think it should just read the local Chamber of Commerce, because Chamber
Yes,
West may or may
because,
not.
yes, good point, Zach.
Things
Local
change,
Chamber of
so-
Commerce.
There you go.
Then,
Wow, so much recognition all at
there's
once.
some of these on here that I just want to ensure that they align with the latest legislative action they have to do with RDAs, Chris. So if you'll just make sure that we're aligning with what the current law says, because some of them I questioned. We're getting there. There is one. There is actually one of those. Page 158. I think goal 9 and goal 16 are kind of the same. But that's just me. Maybe look at them They don't read the same this time, but they just seem the same to me. And then I just want to point out, this is this county map. Do you have one?
Is that the opposite of diversify? Disversify, it's like, make it the same, homogenize.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I wouldn't mind seeing, by the way, in this policy 3, as far as the employment tax base, and we're talking about business building and things, finding a way to minimize business license fees. I think that would be really cool.
I already have one for free.
I don't know about that.
So I just want to make sure that you all know what this says. It says, under the Salt Lake County map, South Jordan, it's page 167, South Jordan willing to annex but supports self-determination. That's a really interesting, that has to do with Rio Tinto property, and we should just be alert to that. I just want you to know what it says.
Oh, wait, South Jordan willing to annex all the way up to what is?
Magna.
Yeah,
Pretty
all the
much.
way up to the west side of our entire city. South Jordan's willing to go all.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're willing to
Have you
take
seen
the
that?
whole mountain.
They're gonna have
The
to.
last I heard, they were stopping at
They're
the South
gonna have
Jordan,
to
West
change
Jordan
their
border.
name to West Jordan.
Right, but read how that, look how that
Or
reads.
West
Is
South
this the
Jordan,
most
or
recent version that
Northwest
we're
South
hearing
Jordan.
now?
I think so. I believe that's the
Yeah,
most.
I only asked, I've been talking to the mayor about that for a while. I heard about that a long time ago.
Yeah.
If they did that and you moved in up there north of Copperton, you'd have to say I live in Northwest South Jordan. Just saying.
Then just 168 with 169 is hard to read.
Yeah, I'll adjust the coloring on that.
It's easy to read online, electronically.
Page 170, goal 6. It kind of contradicts goal 7 on page 172. And I hear all the time for people that live on the far west side that they want more commercial. So I think this goal kind of goes against what our residents say. Goal 6. Utilize the excess space of existing shopping centers for the creation of more businesses, shopping and dining opportunities within established areas of the city rather than creating new commercial development on vacant lands at the fringes of the city. Well, do you know why Riverton built that shopping center on their border? Because then you bring in people from other places. So that, I don't know. I don't really like that goal. Not loving that goal.
I don't like that one either.
Okay.
That would be, I like that goal, except stop where it says established areas of the city, period. So where you have excess space in commercial shopping centers in existing areas of the city, yes, please, bring in businesses, fill those empty spots by all means. Don't stop. That should definitely be a goal. But not to the exclusion of building new shopping centers in developing areas of the city.
So we want to stop at city?
Yeah. So
Okay.
it says, and dining opportunities within established areas of the city, period.
So we want to strike rather than creating new commercial development on vacant lands at the fringes of the city.
Yep. Which was the one on 172 you said?
Which then does not conflict with goal 7.
Right, commercial. Right, exactly. Exactly. Now it's all nice and kosher.
Okay. Uh, 171, goal 1. I think the word periodically is a little too broad. Periodically review the resolution adopting the West Jordan City Master Annexation Plan for consistency with Utah state statutes. I think that needs to be reviewed by someone in the city at least yearly to ensure that something odd hasn't occurred. So yeah, can we change that to annually?
Does it change that often though? I mean, our annexation plan, does it change every year?
Comparison to the state statute.
Oh, the state
that changes
statutes
quite
change every,
frequently.
yeah, every year.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes a few times over the course of a week, so, yeah.
Then 172, Goal 1, examine development impact fee regulations to ensure that a rational nexus exists between the fees collected and the impact specific development may have on the community. I think we need to add there how often that's to be done, because we already saw that we're behind, so I think there needs to be something on how often. And I'm okay leaving that up to administration, but I want to see
Whatever it is, put it
not
there.
every 10 years. Does anyone else think we need to add a time?
Don't we do this almost annually now? I mean,
No,
We haven't.
we need to.
push button.
It's in our financial interest to make sure we're staying on top of this. So I don't, I get a little nervous when you say have to do it annually, because then we're balancing it with everything else we're working on. But it is something we need to do regularly, and I think we do that, or will do that going forward.
As-
But the players in the seats maybe currently will, but the players in the seats at other times maybe not. So I think there needs to be something. It doesn't need to be annually, but
So, yeah, regularly is great. Regularly is fine.
But don't we, so every year when we do the consolidated fee schedule, we look at it as part of the budget, we look at impact fees. There's often a study done by some consulting somebody or other that says your impact fees ought to change up this much for that one. And
The
that
impact
much
fee
for that
study has to be done by a third-party consultant. It can't be
Right.
done by the city itself, right? So we'll regularly, internally, kind of look at that study, but if you're saying we need to go rehire a new consultant to redo our impact fee study every year, that's a lot of
I'm just asking
consulting
how often
dollars.
we redo it. We do that already.
Can we
because
put
I think-
internally examine
I think we do it,
annually?
can I? We can do a lot of things, but if I could finish my sentence, I might be able to, kind of get to that point. What I'm saying is I know that I've seen consultants doing impact fee studies here regularly, at least it feels like every year, every other year, over the 6 years I've been here. Am I thinking of something completely different?
I think so.
Do we not hire consultants to look at impact fees
Some of your fees and stuff.
frequently?
But the impact fees, I don't think have been assessed for quite a while, or at least multiple years. You look at recently, and I've kind of been following this even in some of the other municipalities around, they changed their impact fees because building costs have gone skyrocketing, land costs have gone skyrocketing,
Yeah.
just labor, everything, and if you don't stay on top of that, before you even.
I'm not suggesting we don't. I just thought we already were.
We currently have a consultant under contract who's doing an impact fee study for us right now. That's the first time it's been updated since my tenure here at West Jordan.
Really? Okay. I must be thinking
Yeah.
about some other study that we can get consultants to weigh in on all the time.
What is the guiding master plan that talks about fee study outside of a general plan? What is the guiding document that refers to the impact fees?
I'm not sure I'm understanding your question.
So if we look at the elements of the proposed general plan, we've got the chapters, but there's the related plan reports and maps. And Cassidy suggested earlier on that there's a statement at the beginning of this document that this is a guiding document, and that's great, but a lot of the detail of the goals should be more in those master plans. So when I look at this, I think regularly is a great word for this. If there is another guiding document where we can go in and be more specific and say something like, it should be updated every 5 years.
So the impact fee study is kind of the hierarchy of these studies. The general plan is the big umbrella. This is our future land use map, our long-term goals, and our kind of long-term broad perspective. That drives lots of these smaller master plans, including particularly the water master plan, the stormwater, sewer, wastewater, and transportation master plans. Those master plans then, once they're done based on the broad umbrella of the general plan, then the impact fee study is done that says, okay, in the water master plan, you're going to build 7 new tanks to support this new development. To fund that, you need these impact fees. So the impact fee study has to be done once the water master plan or the infrastructure master plans are completed. Am I answering your question?
I think so. So every time we do a master plan update on any of our utilities, we should also be doing an impact fee study.
Should follow, yeah. Really, they kind of should go hand in hand, yep, they should follow. Yeah, all of our capital facility master planning, yep.
Can we capture that in this goal and say examine development impact fee regulations essentially every time we do a master plan update?
Yeah,
Does that meet the
that's something
regulatory
we should-
requirement?
Is everyone okay with that?
I think if we're talking an internal examination and an internal just checking up on things, I think that's great. But, we're just talking about how these studies take a long time.
Yeah, sometimes sometimes an impact fee study can be done and it can give you headroom to grow the impact fee for 5 years before you have to redo the whole study. So in that case, I would support what Councilman Jacobs saying is right. You do your study by a third-party consultant once every 5 years, once every 7 years, and in the interim years, you do your internal review, and underneath the broad authority of that third-party study, you can adjust those impact fees as long as you're not exceeding what's in the impact fee study by the outside consultant.
So can we work on that goal a little bit to reflect a little more? Thank you.
I'm going to throw this out on this. I think we need a discussion. Tonight's not the place. But when we talk about development pays for infrastructure, we need to explore the use of public infrastructure districts to help with some of the impacts, because we know that Wood Ranch is probably going to use a PID to offset some of the and the PID better than impact fees may be able to better address the impacts of that development to the neighborhood or to the surrounding area, because the PID can fund things that are beyond the four corners of the PID. And we need to have that discussion. I don't think that's tonight, but we need to have a discussion about whether the public infrastructure district is an appropriate way of getting people to pay for fair share of infrastructure over the long term.
Yeah. That might be something we should have in a work session. Can you put that on the list, please? Mr. Anderson, thank you. The next thing I have is in our water one. It's on page 191. We changed our ordinance to water-wise, and this has all kinds of xerscape, xeriscape, however you want to pronounce it. And my concern is that when we, thank you.
What page was it? Because 191 is,
181.
181,
Sorry,
okay.
I didn't go far enough back to read the page number. You'll get there one day. I just want them to say local scape because that's what our ordinance says, and I worry about heat. The more we put in rocks and concrete and asphalt and get rid of plants, even grass, we are just creating heat islands, and that has another ecological issue. So we have to be careful in balancing out what we're doing. Yes, we live in a desert. Yes, we need to be cognizant of that and be careful of the water use, but we also got to be careful about the heat we're creating by going to other things. So I really don't want to see that word. I want to see local scape. It's a better thing for our community.
I agree.
Can you tell me what local scape is? Is that just like
It's
native
using
plants?
native and drought tolerant plants and
I like that too.
mulches. So, 182,
Goal 7.
yeah, goal 7 has zero escape, exerscape again. Goal number 2, encourage the reduction or elimination of lawns in front side yards, particularly for new development. I think we should instead have it be encourage wise use of turf lawn for active use. Because again, we don't, for aesthetics and for heat, we don't want to eliminate all our green. We want to keep some of that. And the best way to use lawn, and the Conservation Park will tell you this, is for active play areas or active use areas. So I would request that instead of saying eliminate, that we encourage wise use of turf lawn for active use. Is anyone opposed to changing it to that? And it's okay to oppose
I
me.
think there's a better way to say it.
Okay.
I like the direction you're going, but I think more like maybe they encourage the use of water-wise landscaping or what's the word that Cynthia always uses over at the
Local
at the
scapes.
thing? Like,
Cynthia's.
local scapes or water-wise landscaping or proper water conservation principles or something. There's something that they use at the Conservancy District at the little place over here on 13th.
Yeah, water efficiency standards. I just don't want to have it say eliminate lawns. I just don't think that's what we really want to do in our city.
It's really,
We're not,
yeah.
we're not Las Vegas, we're not Arizona. Yes, we have a water issue now, but I remember when I was a newlywed, we had a river downtown, so you just never know what's going to
Encouraging
happen.
the reduction of lawns, I think, is a smart
Yes,
goal,
reduction
but not the
and have it,
elimination.
yeah. So can we rework that one, please, someone?
Something around water, yeah, anyway.
And
get where
then
you- I
what
get
was
where you're
one?
going.
Continue to prohibit the use of lawn grass or other plants that require spray irrigation in the park. Oh, that's fine. Oh, my only issue with number 1 is I think it needs to say new development, because when our existing residents read these things, they get a little sometimes
they have
hot
to
under
go
the
rip out
collar.
their
Yeah, and I don't blame them. It's like, are you kidding me? I've lived here for 40 years. Now you're telling me I can't have my sprinkling system in my, so I think it needs to say new development. Just, can we add that? Does anyone oppose to that?
Yeah. No, you're on page 182.
182.
You're talking about goal number 1 on page 182, is that correct?
Yes.
There you go.
Because I agree we need to do that in new development, but I don't want grandma getting upset because she thinks she reads this.
What if we do prohibit in new development and encourage in,
Perfect, yes.
continue to encourage the use of, or discourage the use of lawn grass and prohibit in new development?
Yes, yes, I like that. 183, I only have a couple more. Thanks for your patience. If
There's
you have
only a couple
anything,
more pages.
go ahead and chime in.
Page 397.
Goal 2,
Which one? There's 2.
page 183,
Top one or bottom one?
bottom one. Consider allowing pervious surfaces materials for driveways in order to allow stormwater to soak into the ground rather than add to storm runoff. I get that, except that when you allow that, you're also allowing oil and antifreeze and anything else. So I am strongly opposed to this goal.
Wouldn't that be better in the ground than it would be running into the storm drain in the river and the?
No, because when it's going to go into your water in your wells. In the storm drain, we
Well, that's
control where it
Water that
goes.
comes out of wells, isn't that treated before it's?
Yes.
Yeah.
Going into a well through all of the ground is actually better than a conventional treatment plant.
Yeah. I mean, think of a sand filter for a.
I still don't want to have people parking on lawns and grass, and
No, not.
I want them
It
to
says
park
allowing
on a
it for-
driveway.
for a
Well,
driveway.
they encourage you to park on your grass to wash your car for that reason.
Yeah. The only problem I have with this goal is, aren't we trying to build the Great Salt Lake back up? Don't we want more stormwater runoff? So it gets to the lake?
There is that.
Come on, there's $40 million to study how to make the Great Salt Lake deeper.
On page
How to
190,
make it rain.
here you go. I told you, I promised you ADU, Melissa. Here you go. This paragraph, it's on the right-hand side.
Well, There's line numbers.
And it's about halfway down. It says the zoning code prohibits accessory dwelling units. This is outdated and needs to be removed.
Yeah,
Line
this,
90.
the moderate income housing, remember this year we are only required to update the strategies. Next year, we're required to update the moderate income housing plan. So this, if, we can take it out here if you want, but the whole plan will be updated next year, so.
Yeah, please just take it out.
Yeah,
Please
we'll
just
just
take
take
it
that
out.
out.
Yeah, because as we update the plan, we're gonna use this as a reference as to what we can update it to, and this ought to be.
And then I didn't go through and check this on page 192, but I just want to make sure that someone does and make sure that our numbers that we're quoting here are the same as we had up in economic development. And I didn't go through and check it, but I think somebody should double check that we're not giving two different,
Any particular numbers or just all the numbers on that page?
all the numbers, because we're
There's lots
We're
of
giving a
numbers.
lot of data that, yeah, but we gave it in eco development too, and I don't want it to be different in those two areas. Does anyone have anything else? Anyone else? Anyone?
I didn't have anything.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming tonight.
I just have one other question, if that's okay.
I do, I've got a few things.
Mr. Allen, and then we'll go to Ray. Did you have something? Okay, Ray first.
Just a question that the general plan committee had, and that was just the timing on how often you'd like the general plan updated.
That's a really good question, and I think that should be one of our things. What say you? I'm seeing some people back there waving at me with their fingers far apart.
It's in there as 5 years, so I just wanted to make sure you're
Are we
all
good with 5 years? Yes?
Yeah, ULCT recommends every 5.
What about if we do it similar to what we did with the, or what we're now doing with the employee salary thing, where we look at a third of it every year, so that everybody gets reviewed every 3 years? If we did a fifth of it every year, so that you're reviewing, so the general plan committee is a standing committee, and it just looks at every year, you take a fifth of it and you look at it and say, does this need to be updated? And then the next year, you take a look at section 2, and then section 3.
That kind of dovetails in with, I was just going to ask clarity from this group, what does it mean to update the general plan? Is it a comprehensive top to bottom, or are we updating various elements of said plan? I mean, the moderate income housing needs to be updated very frequently.
Right.
But
I think the issue that I have the most is when we look at this part of the general plan, and we have people coming to us constantly wanting to change it. When we don't keep this updated, I think it makes the work for us harder, and for staff, really, but what do you have to?
I don't think it has to be comprehensive, but I do think there's some key elements in there that probably needs to be addressed a lot more frequently, and maybe even split it out like every 3 years or 2 years, and take a section of it out and take what's pertinent.
I got one thing.
I think that's a little bit more digestible and stuff.
And keep in mind that we've had this committee working on this for like a year, right? So, 2
and a half,
years,
almost.
2 years, yeah. We're
And
at
that's
2
what-
years, though.
And David, how long did it take last time? About 2 years?
Yes, they said, hey, we need you to serve on.
Microphone, turn it on, please.
Yes, I was told, yeah, can you serve on this committee for 1 year? And then 3 years later, we were finalizing it, and we finished it in December. So then I petitioned to put the next year on the general plan so that it didn't seem immediately outdated, because like the next week, it would have been outdated by a year according to the date on it. So yeah, it took about 3 years to put it together.
Oh, so we cut a whole year off of it.
So it sounds
exactly.
like this
We're
should
ahead
be
of the
just a
curve.
standing committee that is constantly reviewing throughout the year then.
That's what I think.
So, Chair
They're as big as
Whitelock,
cities we have.
sorry to interrupt.
No, I didn't mean to.
So what I'm hearing from the group, from various comments, is that there is an appetite to update certain elements. If it's okay, we'll come up with a proposed list of proposed elements,
Like schedule?
a schedule, and then as we have public hearings with the commission, with the council, you'll get a chance to chime in then. But I'm planting the seed now so you can start thinking about it, but we'll come up with the list and present it to you.
I think that's kind of what Councilmember Jacob and what we've heard is, yeah, we kind of want to schedule, yeah.
Who's gonna be appointing this committee and reviewing them on a regular basis to make sure they're,
It would be like a standing committee, like similar to a planning commission.
It's a council.
so the council, I'm just making sure, because, you know, the mayor appoints certain committees, I didn't know where you
Mayor
guys.
could recommend.
Okay,
It's a council
Yeah,
committee.
just
that's
making
in
sure.
statute.
Yeah,
I
thank
have,
you.
I have one thing in the general plan, sorry, that I missed that I wanted to bring up and then I forgot as we kept cruising through it, so. It's on page 191, all the way to the end, and I wouldn't have noticed it if Kayleen hadn't had some all the way back here in the back, because I would have just completely forgot about it. But I would like to look at what we designate as high, medium, and low density, especially with single-family homes. Because as somebody drives through, for example, in the Sycamores, the lower part of the Sycamores neighborhood, the Oaks neighborhood that we were just looking at on the map, the single-family homes on these smaller 5,000 to 6,000 square foot lots, people don't think of that as high density. When people see high density on a map, they freak out because it says high density, and really what's being proposed is like 6,000 square foot single-family lots, and people go, oh, well, that's okay. I would rather redefine these so that they match up with what people think of when they think of this, so we don't have the outrage every time we rezone something.
Well, and weren't we told that, was it Larry or someone else? Didn't somebody tell us that ours are different than other municipalities?
Probably, yeah.
They did.
I don't know if we want to, I mean, if I was gonna go through this right now, it's not up on the wall. But like, R15 is listed as high density, R16 is listed as high density. I would put both of those at medium. And R1, maybe even R18 is medium, and then R19 and up would be low. And maybe R1,
R110 in almost every other city is a medium density house.
it's medium in ours as well. But nobody thinks
No, I mean, R110 in every other city is a low density.
is a low, and we're medium, yeah. Yeah, and R110, that's quarter acre lots, and we're calling that medium density?
So
That may have been true like 50 years ago, but that's not true anymore.
do you want to do it in a work meeting, Zach, or do you want to have staff bring a proposal back?
Well, it's in the general plan, I wouldn't mind. How about staff, when you bring back the general plan for final adoption, you bring back a proposal on this and we can chat about it.
Is everyone okay with that? Okay.
And things, and just to throw this out here for consideration, is townhomes is medium to high, but it's not necessarily high. It depends on how many of them you have, right? Just because they're attached doesn't make them high density. When people think high density, people think apartment buildings, they think big, they think tight. I had somebody call Gladstone, somebody came to the meeting the other week and called Gladstone Place high rises. Okay, some of them are 3 stories, so, I mean, when I think high rises, I think downtown, so,
Hey,
again, it's
Larry?
definitions.
Along with this definition, let's nail down density units per acre so that we know exactly when we're talking very, very high density, the number of units per acre. That very high density that is not unlimited, or that if we decide that we want to have an unlimited density, we have a designation unlimited density or something. Or
So you want to, just to interrupt you and clarify, you want a number associated with the category?
yes,
Correct.
number of units per acre. I think that will help deal with that. You know, like when we dealt with the Peterson development, that was 6.19 units per acre. What really is that? Is that a medium density? Is that high density? And I think Zach's right, that eliminates a lot of fear.
And it's certainly not an R320 zone, which is what they have on the property, and they're building single-family houses on 5,000 square foot lots, so.
Councilmember Pack.
Well, thank you. I was speaking with a couple of other elected officials from different cities today, and looking at finances, I was just curious on page 190 on line 115, if we could just add the word household to the beginning of that paragraph, because there was some confusion as to if that was per person, where it just said page 190 on line 115. The paragraph heading does say household income, but then it just says income in West Jordan averages $96,000 per year. And I'm assuming that that means household income, because then you come down and say that the median household income is $79,000. So, Just putting the word household, wouldn't that be more proper instead of just income? Because then the people I was talking to are wondering, well, is that per person or is that per household?
Per person will be per capita.
Mm-hmm.
Households 3.42, whatever it is.
But for clarity, are
Just
we okay
can
with that?
Start the paragraph with household.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone have anything else?
did. Just over in the sustainability, maybe, I've got 3 items, and they're very quick. The one is, on page 177, did we catch the multiple repeating bullet points? Okay. The section has on 178, a section about energy conservation. We talk about, very briefly, renewable energy sources, more specifically for solar and wind and power generation. And then we drop it, and we don't talk about it again for the entire section. Similarly, at the end of this section on 185 in the summary, line 51, starting there, it says the environmental element supports water conservation, improving air quality. Again, not anything that's actually addressed in any portion of this sustainability section. I'm wondering if that was intended to, or did it run out of time? Was it, because it's very focused on water, but we've obviously tried to say that we're at least thinking about some other things. Does that make sense?
Where did this verbiage come from? Was it for our MR committee, or is this a past plan, or do we know anyone? And we said, never mind, because that's our way.
I believe that I'm being told that came from a past plan, and so that would probably explain why there's not detail regarding air quality. If that's something you want to look at, we can look at it.
So we probably either need
I
to
have,
delete it
I have
or
given
add.
this to the sustainability committees, particularly the environment chapter and the sustainability chapter, and asked them to review and provide additional comment as well.
Okay.
And I think that's where I was landing. If we're going to address it, great. If not, maybe strike it out so that somebody doesn't say, well, where did that go? The other question, maybe a lot more holistic and probably very poorly timed on my part at the end of the conversation, but food for thought. Going back to this notion of the general plan being more of a guideline and then, or a guiding document, and then getting into the individual master plans as being the place where the goals are. Looking at that, I'm wondering if goals in the master plan is the right verbiage, and it really ought to be something more like guiding principle, and then have the actual goals. And that creates a lot of, or fixes a lot of things for me, because goals really should be measurable, and the vast majority of these are not. But they are fantastic guiding principles that in the master plans we could use to make measurable goals. So that was my thought there.
I love that idea. Does anyone oppose that idea? All right. I don't know who we're going to, but I'm going to just say, Ms. Hanson.
Great.
Work with staff.
That's the right answer.
Follow-up question.
Okay.
Would you like staff to go through the goals and make recommendations as to which goals might be more appropriate for a master plan versus a general plan? Like, I guess my question is what line of specificity do you want? So for example, in other cities' master plans, they have goals that we would have in our general plan and vice versa, right? So for example, this document that I placed on your table, this includes all of the goals within the plan. And as you can see, it's like 40-something odd pages. Would it be more appropriate to trim this down and include some of these specifics in the master plan, or do you want to keep them all? And I know in other cities as well, they'll do something like this at the end of their general plan, and then they'll have like the goal, the action, the costs, and then timing, when do we want this goal done, and which department is over that. So it's a lot more work. It depends on what you want. I guess we need some more direction is what I'm saying.
Well, I think guiding principles in the verbiage of this instead of goal 1 through 20 would be, I think it's much more user-friendly. but I do kind of like the graph at the end so that we have where it's at and what we're doing with it. And yes, I know that will take a lot more time, and I know that that's staff time intensive, but
It gives you who's responsible for it too.
Mhm.
Oh, sorry. It gives you who's more responsible for it, which department or which, so I do like that.
So is that the direction we want to give staff? If you're opposed, let me know now. Otherwise, that is the direction we're giving. Now you're sad you gave us that graph, aren't you?
I mean, I knew it needed to be done, but I didn't want to spend staff time on it unless the bodies wanted it, so.
Most people were smiling,
I
so.
think it'll make for a much stronger overall general plan, which is going to make all of our jobs easier in the years to come.
Yeah, even staff. All right, anyone else have something they want to contribute this evening that is on the agenda? Otherwise, we're going to go to number 2, and it will be rather quick. The 2B is discussion on scheduling a future land use training. You were given by Vice Chair Green. This is the handbook for planning commissions and land use authorities. There's some really interesting information. It's from the Utah Leagues of Cities and Towns. I think at least leadership, I think all three of us feel like that's something that maybe we need to work on in our city is how staff gives us information and what our roles really are. Sometimes it's confusing as to what our roles are and how that should look like. So like oftentimes in a city council meeting, what you'll hear is, I just want to know what the planning commission's recommendation was. I don't need to read all this staff stuff. And so I think that if we maybe planned a meeting to have some training together and talk about how we want the information to come to us, right? That could be helpful. So as the chair of that committee, what say you, Mr. Thomas?
I would like to see some additional land use questions and actually training. Me and Commissioner Shelton attended one that was put on by, which group was it that did the Utah Land Act?
Taylorsville.
It was Taylorsville, but which group?
The Utah League.
Yeah. Anyway, that was some really good information, and at least all of the plant commissioners got that book, and it's a pretty easy read. And then there was another one that was written by a couple of developers from back east somewhere that I read that was actually pretty good too. I should have brought the 2 books to get tonight, but it was more, at the real high level, and some of the stuff does apply to us, some of it doesn't. So I'd like to see it more concentrated on what our roles are, what responsibilities we have, and especially when it comes to some of the things that are going on when we're approving plans and stuff, the consequences that our decisions can carry on for decades. Especially right now off the top of my head is water rights and water. And when we look at a plan that's coming down the pipeline, I would like to know really what is the amount of water or utilities or whatever we have in place right now to support that type of development, and how much in the future are we going to need. And that would kind of go back into some of the rates and costs and stuff that it would take in the future. And I think that would benefit everybody in this room.
So let me jump in here. Mr. Wall and I, along with Mr. Anderson, spent 2.5 hours today on a Teams meeting discussing planning commission roles and how we should train planning commission roles. In this book, I want you to pay particular attention to page 18. And it will specifically tell you about the dual nature and the dual role of a planning commissioner, and whether or not you're in a legislative role or you're in an administrative role. It's really weird the way the league numbered them, so. Page 18 is, yeah. The top of the page is part 2, the responsibilities of the planning commission, and on the back side, it's legislative and administrative. And it specifically talks about planning commission has to understand and appreciate the dual role that they play when making a recommendation on a general plan or a land use ordinance, that you're actually part of the political legislative process. What we have seen on the council is not, I'm going to say it, we haven't seen good debate. I think you guys want to make better recommendations, and because of some constraints with the ordinance, with some of our ordinances and things, I don't think that when you're in a legislative role, you even think that you can listen to public clamor, that you can. So as we talked with City Attorney Wall today, he has got animated training, isn't it right, Rob? Did you say it was an animated training? Part of it's animated training that he did when he was at South Jordan that talks about the dual nature and dual role. And that's part of the discussion here is, when do you want to do that? Preferably before the end of the year, so that so that we all understand the role of the planning commission, and that you're actually having the discussions you want to have. I've heard from a couple of people who said, wait a minute, I didn't think we could have that discussion. Well, on a planning commission, you can discuss anything you want as long as it's reasonably debatable. And that's the standard. I'm going to tell you, there is no finding of fact. That it's the reasonably debatable standard, and that's what we're hoping that we can get to. And so that's what we want you to think about, and that as you do this training, what are the impediments to implementing and making sure that you're comfortable in that role?
So this is the question for you, and I would lean towards the commissioners on this one, because we could do it on one of your regular commission nights. Some of your meetings go long, but many times lately it seems like y'all are done pretty quick. So we could piggyback it on one of your Tuesday meetings. We could do it on a totally different night. We could do it on an opposite of a city council night. We could try for a work session, but we're pretty stacked on those probably till the end of time, certainly through the end of the year. So please chime in.
How long do you think it would take?
Mr. Wall, time, what are we looking at time-wise?
7-8 hours tops.
Have you ever listened to Mr. Wall? Probably 4 days.
Which hotel?
Microphone.
Sorry. I've done this for a lot of cities, and it can be 20 minutes, it could be 3 hours. A lot of it, one thing that would help, there's really a couple of parts to it. I've got a little, it's not lengthy, but it's an animated thing I put together a number of years ago that illustrates in a real practical way this concept that Councilmember Green's talking about. And then also, the other part of it is just showing you kind of graphically, again, the various roles that the Planning Commission, the staff, and the council play in the land use process. And then I have a few suggestions just from my own experience, but what I would suggest also, if you have specific questions or concerns, send me an email about those, and I'm happy to address those also. The book that you have is really a good primer on this.
The challenge with it is you read it and there's 30 people in the room and you get 30 different interpretations of what it means. But there's some really good principles in there that I talked with Councilmember Green and Mr. Anderson, and I'm more than happy to go over and give you some examples of how those have been done in the past in different scenarios. And so an hour, 45 minutes, half an hour.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Langsford.
To add to that, and you can just take this into consideration, the overall training could be whatever you feel is appropriate. The commissioners, by state law, are required to have a certain number of hours of land use training. And so, as needed, we could dig into it a little bit deeper and augment our existing training that we have with the commissioners, if it's more finite and specific to them. But just throwing that out there, that we're doing that right now, and we could certainly augment it.
I have two thoughts. One, I agree with Scott. Let's just do this as part of our monthly training. And if we need to break it up into 2 or 3 sessions, then we can do that, right? It'd be better to have a good discussion that we want to have at the beginning of a meeting rather than tacking it on at the end of another marathon meeting.
So are you talking your work session?
Yeah,
Matt? Is that
well,
what you're
in our
talking, that you
pre-meetings,
do
when
the-
we do that,
yeah.
in our pre-meeting. The second one is, I would recommend that we wait till January before we do this unless we need to do it, just in case we get new planning commissioners that need to hear this.
But we've
Because-
already got new ones that I think this would benefit.
Sure, but they'll also be here in January. I don't know, do we have somebody who's up for reappointment?
No.
They're up in-
So this guy is not gonna get renewed, I already know that, so we're gonna have at least one new guy. I just don't wanna do it now and then have to do it again in January because we have somebody new, right? If we can put it off till January, and then it also doesn't mean Duncan doesn't need to change his current plan. He has a new plan he can start with in January. That would be my suggestion. But I don't think we need to have an extra meeting to have this.
I'd like to see it start sooner than later, but I'll leave it up to you guys because
Well, so now I need some more commissioners to weigh in because I've got a tie.
We can let the planning commission determine this on their own. I don't think council.
The council is going to attend. The council is going to be invited in case we need to change any of our code to allow whatever needs to occur. And so we can guide what information comes from staff might change.
I hate to go against you, but if it's gonna be city council in the meeting also, it should probably be a separate meeting, shouldn't it?
Well, I mean,
You
I
want the
don't
city
think there's a
council
hard
to drive here
fast.
for a 20-minute meeting?
Well, I don't think that there's a hard fast that your meeting has to start at 6, right? You could start at 7 or,
Our meetings are all agenda at 6 o'clock.
Do we have another combined date for us?
This year.
Not this year?
it's the 5th Tuesday, so that only occurs twice a year. Councilmember Pack.
Well, thank you, Chair. Do all of these trainings need to be completely synchronous? I'm thinking, here we are debating for 20 minutes about a 20-minute video. Just curious if some of these presentations, not only for Planning Commission, but for City Council, if they could be emailed, everybody watches them asynchronously, and then you get back together and discuss, as Mr. Wall was saying, hey, send me any questions, or if you have any scenarios that you're inquiring about, and then that would be good food for thought. Maybe that's a hybrid idea to save some time. I know quite often in our city council meetings, we have half an hour, or it seems like 40-minute presentations that otherwise, if time is at a premium, as you mentioned in work sessions, or trying to get so many people together in the room at the same time, just to save on some time, anything that we can do on our own time asynchronously, watching presentations, then coming back and discussing. Just a thought.
I think
The element that you forget when we do that, and that works really well, and I don't disagree with that, but the element that we need to always remember is our meetings are broadcast and the public misses out. So that's the one.
I just want to say, I think the interaction between both the commission and the city council and with our even legal staff, I think you can't duplicate that on the computer.
I honestly think we should just tack this on to a planning commission meeting, because that's already a meeting that they're planning on. And it's just, their meetings don't go like ours do. And, maybe
Usually.
look at their agendas and say, is there something that's gonna be a shorter meeting, shorter agenda, and then
Tack it on to the end.
tack it on to the end. That way you're already here, and, we just join in.
When's the next fifth week that we would do a joint session anyway? November 29th, but that's Thanksgiving week.
In November, so it would be next spring.
I say we do it next spring.
Mr.
Seconded.
Allen, what did you have?
I think the part that I find intriguing really is hearing from the council what they want to hear back from the planning commission. What do you consider a healthy debate, right, amongst the planning commission? What is it you want to see and hear and observe in order to help inform your decisions? That's the part that I would be most interested in, I think most benefited by.
Would anyone oppose having Mr. Wall and Mr. Thomas look at some times with Mr. Gardner, I think is the person, but to maybe look at a planning commission meeting and see if there's one that all you're doing is looking at something simple, maybe adding it.
I wonder if we could set it up in such a way where we can have a discussion about an actual agenda item. I don't know if that's a possibility. If we have an upcoming planning commission where there's a particular item that we know there should be some conversation about, we hold that, the city council can observe that, and then maybe come back and chat with us a little bit about what they liked, didn't like, what they'd like to see more of. I don't know if that's...
I'm not sure, and I'm only one person, but from what I've heard, I'm not sure that it's a concern of what we're getting from the planning commission, because we get, right, 6 people said yes, 1 person said no, or 5 people said yes and 2 are gone, whatever, and what your decision was. We get that. I think there's a deeper conversation that's wanted to have. About processes, I think is part of it, and ensuring that we're all legally, we're all where we should be and doing what we should be.
I think, to his point, I would prefer to have something specific, because I've been doing this 8 years now, and nothing has changed from the time when David was running the show, to when Trish was running the show, to when Kelvin was sitting next to me when I was doing it, to when Jay's doing it now. I don't feel like anything's changed. We have conversations and discussions when they're necessary. A lot of the time, we're looking at facts and they're black and white, and whether we like it or not is really irrelevant. And so I would prefer to have somebody say, no, you're wrong, that's not irrelevant, you need to have an actual discussion, and this is what you should have thought about and considered. And I think if we point out a specific example, as Ammon was suggesting, that would be far more helpful to me than to have some nebulous conversation where I'm just like, okay, I guess I'll think about it, but I'd rather see where I'd made a mistake and didn't bring up a point that I should have brought up. But in nearly 8 years, this is the first time anybody said, you're kind of doing it wrong.
Well, but here's the point. Not everything is black and white. The point that I'm saying is, and one of the things that the council, at least 2 of us have talked about, is changing even the process, because it is not, and the staff's going to hear this, and I've talked to Scott about this before, so it won't blindside him, but it's not staff's job to make a finding of fact, and you guys on some of these things don't make findings of fact. You make findings that determine whether or not the development is appropriate or not. And what's happening is we're getting so focused on this black and white fact that what we're not having is the open discussion about whether or not the development, and we're not interjecting opinions, we're not discussing it, we're talking about, yep, that's the fact, that must be okay. That we want to get away from that, we want to have the legislative debate on these developments so that everybody's comfortable, because sometimes there are things that you say, well, hey, we don't like it, this is overall general good plan, but we don't like X, Y, Z. Well, tell us that in the recommendation. We like the overall plan, but we don't like X, Y, Z. That's what we're talking about here, is having the legislative debate and not an administrative findings of fact on every general land use and every zoning ordinance, zoning change in the city.
So I feel like we actually do that. Like, I'll give you an example. Was it 2 meetings ago, we heard that the application for the Mountain America rezone over here on Redwood? To me, black and white, right? I get that the neighbors are upset that there's a possible change, and I'm looking at it based on the training that I've had over 8 years, that I'm supposed to look at it, and if I find an actual reason why I shouldn't, why I don't agree with that, then I can make that statement. This guy dissented from the rest of the group, right? Based on the way I'm not blaming him, it's fine. You did that too all the time, right? We were taught, you look at it this way, right? Now, if that's the case, that's fine, then we've been taught wrong, right? And so for the last 8 years, I've been making decisions based on the one set of training that we've had, that we're supposed to look at the findings that staff has provided, and maybe we need to start changing them to suggestions of interpretation, I don't know what you want to call it, so that we can look at it a little bit more openly, right? But it's always been, this is what we found as staff, this is what we've recommended, and if you don't like it, you have to state the reason why. He didn't do that because he wasn't recommending a negative recommendation, right? But that's my point, is that, to me, that was a very obvious, this is a slam dunk pass fail type of situation, and he was the only one that said, no, I don't like it, right? We had the same one with, I think it was Welby West, we had some healthy discussion on that one, right? But again, we're following what we've always been taught. So if we're talking that what we've always been taught is wrong, that's fine. I get that. Then we need to have a training that teaches us to look at it a little bit differently. But if we continue to get the same packet, then nothing's going to change.
I'm on board with that, and I think if I were to suggest how we approach that, I would say, let's have, Commissioner Green, who's very clearly has a direction and a plan in place, which I think is great. Maybe coordinate that with staff, and then have staff bring that to us in our workshops and give us that training. And then if we still continue to see that, I don't know if we need all of city council.
What I hear is, what I hear is the planning commission is resistant to this. We'll just change the ordinance and we'll move on.
I don't think anybody said that.
Well, that's what I'm hearing, so.
Well, that's not what we're saying. So, I mean, do you want us to just roll over on this? You asked for a discussion about it, right? So we're giving you our opinions. So don't just put words in our mouth, okay? I mean, I'm okay to have a conversation about this, but let's have a conversation about it instead of just getting upset about it.
Would anyone oppose the council offering a training with Mr. Wall? And you can come or you don't come. And we'll just tell you when it is. We'll invite everyone. We'll invite your chair. We'll invite your vice chair. We'll invite the council. We'll invite everyone. Mr. Wall will do it. We'll have a discussion. And from that, because that will help the council to know what direction to go, I feel.
Well, I guess I'm full of opinions on this. Do we need to have 8 people giving us direction on this, or is it just Mr. Wall giving us direction? I'm just trying to figure out why the city council needs to be there if it's a training that's coming from the staff in order to learn how to do this better. It just seems like it would be more focused if we have one person training. I'm just trying to understand the reason why we would have city council and planning commission there for a training that's just for the planning commission.
Because the city council may need to make some changes in code so that the process is changed.
Couldn't those notes just be passed along at the end of the meeting? I appreciate the dialogue that we've had tonight, but it went really long because we've got 15 people, 16 people, however many we are, offering opinions. I'm just trying to limit the number of people so that we can get through the material and have a conversation that involves the 7 planning commissioners that's relevant to the planning commission. And then if there's something that comes out of that, we've got all the staff members here who are taking notes on everything that can pass along the notes. Mostly I'm thinking about you guys. Why do you want to have another meeting? You guys already have 1,000 meetings. Why add one more when you don't need it?
Amen, brother. No, I'm kind of wondering why the council thinks the council has any business instructing the planning commission on how to do their job.
I didn't say we were instructing, we were suggesting that maybe training and alternate
council
training might be
train-
done.
I think
No,
somebody
not the
said
council
The
training.
council training the planning commission.
No, no one said that.
That's
No one
what's
said
coming
that.
across.
Okay, that's not what we're
I'm
saying.
getting,
We're
what
saying
I'm,
Mr.
what I'm
Wall
getting
should
from
do
this,
some training.
what I'm getting from this discussion is that the city council thinks the planning commission is doing its job lousy. That's what
That
I'm
is
hearing.
not what we're trying to convey.
That's what's coming
I
across.
guarantee you that's not what we're trying to convey.
I think,
We're trying to
I
figure out how
totally
we can
see
do it
how
better.
that message is being received. I totally understand that. And if I were sitting in your shoes, I would be receiving that. I'm receiving that same message and I'm not in your shoes.
So it sounds like we should just have Mr. Wall maybe work with Mr. Thomas and
I
Mr.
think-
Gardner.
Well, I think the underlying concern, I think if we're gonna put all the cards on the table, put all the cards on the table. I think what the frustration is that there's frustration with the way staff is preparing reports, therefore they're directing the planning commission certain ways that they shouldn't be directing the planning commission, they should be suggesting to the planning commission or something that was said before. And there's some on the council who have a problem with the way staff is interacting with planning commission. If that's the case, then maybe we need to have, the council needs to have a conversation with Corbin and Scott to talk about how the staff prepares its reports for the planning commission. If that's what the problem is, then let's name the problem. It's not the planning commission doing it wrong, it's the way the staff is presenting to the planning commission. Okay, if that's the problem, let's call the spade and let's deal with that problem. Instead of sitting here telling the planning commission, you guys should push back on staff more. Maybe you should push back on staff more, I don't know. But again, that's a function of the staff planning commission relationship. I don't see the council really getting involved in that. Again, if there's code that needs to be changed, then okay, we can change code. But I think this is a function of state law more than it is a function of city code.
I just want to be clear. I'm not taking this as that you guys think we're doing a bad job. You've made it very clear that we've been provided with a certain set of facts and we're following the rules that we've been taught. I don't have a problem with that. If we have need to improve, I'm not offended or annoyed that you guys are trying to improve that, right? That's exactly what we should be doing. To Zach's point, we're separate bodies, right? We used to be appointed by the council, and I would see where that would make sense for the council to be involved in the training with us, but we're not appointed by the council anymore, right? This should be trained by someone else, and I just don't see a need to have the council involved in that. You can suggest, hey, I think you guys should have this training, and I think this is great, Calvin, that we have this, that we should be going through this, but let's just leave this to Mr. Wall to do the training, and let's just move on, and then we'll figure out what we need to do to improve, and we'll be better.
I like that.
On the flip side of that coin, I welcome feedback from the council. I welcome it. And if I can do my job better as a planning commissioner by listening to suggestions from the city council, I'm open to it.
Thank you. The intent of this discussion was not to make anybody feel like they weren't doing their job right. We just want it. We can always improve. In every area of our life, we can always improve. That's my personal belief. But I think we're done, Mr. Anderson. Anything else? Staff, anything else? No? So I would ask for a final motion in this meeting. No one?
I'll move to adjourn.
Second. All in favor? Thank you for your time.